Yo guys, it's me, Matrix here, coach of the Welsh Warlords, bringing you week 6 power rankings of the UGA Season 2 Johto Division. With me this week, we have got Bryan of the Charlotte Beadrills. Say hello.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And we've got a special guest, first time co-host for this week, is Bioptic and the Southeast Lux Rays.
Hello.
Um, so, This week we aren't. Masenko is unable to join us. Carmine may hop in later on if he's got time. He's currently competing in one of the Mount Silver tournaments, so we'll see how that goes. But this week was another interesting week again. I think as the season goes on, it just each week gets more and more interesting.
Yeah, all the teams have figured out how their teams work, and even know and each team has kind of figured out secret attacks to really frustrate the opponent. So it's good to see this late in the week, late in the season.
I always
Yeah.
find sorry, I always find that the towards the middle of the season is some of the most exciting matches because it's where the coaches become more familiar with their teams. They start creating these cool creative combos and which are surprisingly effective. So we'll get a little bit into that some of these matches in a bit.
Yep.
So first things first, we've got the Cardiff Kamalas here. They had a week bye due to the drop of Oddball Otter in previous weeks. So we're at a 15-man division as of week 6. So they didn't get to play a match, but they will make up a match later on in this season or in week 11 after the initial season. They'll play another one of the coaches. However, this week we'll just briefly touch upon it. There's no need to go on it too much. Ended up being 2 forfeit wins to the Drowsy Dracosults and the Welsh Warlords due to scheduling issues from the opponents and stuff. But this has been dealt with in the division, and so there's no need to dwell too much on it here.
Yep.
So I suppose we've only got a few matches to talk about actually. I think how many matches were actually recorded? 1, 2, 3, 4.
All of
Oh,
them
5.
except for Kremik because he didn't click the record button.
That's correct.
Oh yeah.
That's really unfortunate as well. I'll have to when we get to talking about that matchup, I'll have to get my notes up because not my notes, his notes because my God.
if I remember rightly, in the results page, didn't Dragon put in a really detailed
Yeah.
Yes.
rundown and then was like, "Oh, here's this, so it doesn't trigger Matrix."
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it actually fulfilled the
Trigger
results.
Matrix.
Yeah, he gave quite a detailed kill count, which is helpful. I'm glad he gave the short and condensed version afterwards. That was
Yeah.
something from last season, man. Last season, the way we did it last season, where we were listing out this
Exactly.
killed this,
Who
and that.
killed what? I mean,
No.
we didn't always use the moves. I never used the moves. I just
Mm.
said this mon KO'd this mon or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the way we do it now with
Oh,
brought
so
kills, deaths. I like that one.
So much shorter, so much quicker to type out and report from as well. Because we did it game by game last season, and this time we just chuck them all together into one report.
Yep.
But yeah, okay. So game 1, the London Lucarios versus the Somerville Scraggies. A 2-0 victory for the Somerville Scraggies, a +7 KD differential here. And I think that was only because the London Lucarios lost their Azumarill to Life Orb Recoil.
That is correct.
So,
yep.
From Max, I believe.
Yeah. So, does anyone have any initial thoughts from this matchup?
It was an interesting one to watch. Obviously, Tyler played it really well, as to be expected. Tyler's doing really well this season. But game 1, especially, the London Lucarios needed to get Trick Room up, and they ally switched and home clawed.
That was turn 2, yes.
Yeah, after the turn 1, obviously they got the rock slide flinch, which obviously is unfortunate. But in that situation, I got a bit confused at why they ally switched and home claws when it was likely that they were going to go for another rock slide. And
yeah.
if you flinch again, turn 2 to a rock slide, that's just major hacks, and that's just major unlucky.
Yeah. I think the ally switch was that was a definition of a bad ally switch. Like your opponent is using a spread move. You're not trying to preserve. He's trying to preserve his purloin there, and we realize later on why he was trying to preserve the purloin. But he went for an ally switch. I think obviously turn 1 he went to set Trick Room but got flinched. I don't know how favorable that would have been for him because of obviously you're facing off against a Regirock, and Regirock is known to be quite a threat under Trick Room.
Yeah.
And that Cabalion paired up with it using coaching, that's going to make this Regirock really strong, really physically strong, really quick.
As we saw.
And
honestly, if one team just has like Regirock or like a coaching thing, you can just let your opponent set Trick Room and you'll be fine. Like it's not even part of your strategy. You can just let the opponent set Trick Room and you'll be fine.
Yeah. And the weird thing of it is that yes, he was trying to set Trick Room, but his Trick Room mon from the back was, I believe, a Azumarill, which is a fair. It's a fairly respectable mon against a Regirock type thing. It's super effective against it. I believe Tyler was running a Assault Vest Regirock this week, not a weakness policy. I could be mistaken. But so there was always that threat of hitting the Regirock with a super effective move triggering weakness policy. But luckily, if he had gone for that, it wouldn't have happened. Plus, Azumarill being physical doesn't mind about the Assault Vest. You just got to try and break through these defense buffs that the Cabalion's putting onto it. So on one hand, setting Trick Room is a good idea just to make sure that the Cabalion's moving last in the turn, so the buffs are going on afterwards. But Azumarill and Regirock are both the same speed tier. They're both speed 50, so I presume the Azumarill was being ran at minimum speed, and I presume the Regirock would have also been minimum speed just to match this.
It would have come down to a speed tie.
Yeah, there would have been a lot of speed ties and stuff. I don't remember if there was any speed ties in the match, but so we've said about the Trick Room failing that first turn. If you were going to go for it, you should have gone for it turn 2. It was unfortunate. It was just such a comprehensive win for the Somerville Scraggies. Because I do like what the Lucarios are doing, which is creating these innovative sets. He's still bringing the Dusclops of Eviolite, which is
I'd like to see like a mental herb.
I think one week it could be good to run like surprise the opponent and be like, oh no, this week it's mental herb. I get my Trick Room up now.
Or even max Dusclops with weakness policy. That's something to think about. Also, what I've always thought that he should run at some point is Sap Sipper Azumarill over huge power. Like if there's a glaring grass weak, if he sees grass but no electric, that'd be a perfect time to run Sap Sipper. That would give him an immunity and it would give him an attack boost. He could even run I guess we're jumping the gun with his game 2 in this one. He ran Home Claws and Baton Pass on the Purloin in game 2 that went into when he did that, it went into the Azumarill.
Yes.
I think at some point you could basically do that, send it into if you're lucky enough to predict it into a grass move, he gets that Azumarill gets +2 in attack. I think it's something he should look into at some point if he's got if his opponent's not running any electric but it's running grass.
Well, what's interesting about that is, as you say, as we go into talk about game 2, is that Azumarill maxed game 2 after the Baton Pass with the Home Claws. Now, the Tisserina attacked the Purloin slot to get the KO with Play Rough and dropped the Azumarill's attack, which is a little...
That's really unfortunate.
Plus accuracy, so it just basically that Azumarill only had a plus accuracy.
Yeah, so it's slightly unfortunate. It was cool tech. I get what they were trying to do, really make this Azumarill a physical threat, but Azumarill's only got a base 50 attack plus huge power is a base. It doubles it. So it's already quite a weakish mon. But I like to see what they were trying to do there. As I say, unfortunate that the attack drop happened, like 10% chance to happen, and it did it on the switching. Especially as he hadn't revealed that yet. But what ended up happening was that he maxed the Azumarill, and the Serena basically one-shot it with Power Whip. So as you were saying, like if it was running Sap Sipper there, then it could have been a +2 attack. Like I don't know if Tyler was 100% sure at that point as to whether it was a Sap Sipper or Huge Power mon, because most of the times when the Azumarill had been put on the field, it had been got rid of quite quickly. So it could have been easily have shifted into a more favorable scenario for the London Lucarios. Like if it had been a bit more favorable, he could have been facing a +2 attacking Azumarill, and
he could have done like a max hailstorm into the
Serena. Yeah.
Into the Serena.
Yeah. What I did like, and this was unfortunate, it shows that Splat, which is the coach of the London Lucarios, is still a little bit inexperienced, is that turn 1 of game 2, it was a Serena lead from the Somerville Scraggies with Inteleon with sub focus energy and scope lens snipe shot. Like that's basically asking for just like a sniping point at that point. It's like Inteleon's just doing its sniping vantage, it's hiding, it's getting ready, just sniping everyone for crits. But what ended up happening was the opponent led Purloin and Dusclops, and the Somerville Scraggies anticipated that he would lead the same again. And now Serena is really good in this situation because it can freely taunt the Dusclops whilst also preventing fake out due to its ability Queenly Majesty. And I think this is, as I was saying, a bit where the inexperience shows from the London Lucarios, because he still went for that fake out into the Serena. Which at this point, if you're in game 2 and you're down a set already, you don't want to be risking that type of play to check to see if it is the Queenly Majesty. It's 90% always going to be running Queenly Majesty. Sometimes it will run Sweet Veil, but in this situation, it was very deliberate. It was so that the Serena could just shut down that Dusclops, and as we saw, there was no attacking moves on the Dusclops.
Right.
It ended up struggling. Obviously, Dusclops isn't known for its attacking pressure, but Dusclops is known for being bulky and not taking damage. And when you start struggling,
and doing a consistent 50 damage per attack. Nightshade.
Like it would have been nice to have seen at least one other attacking move on it. I don't know the full set of the Dusclops. I think we only saw it use Ally Switch, Trick Room, and there was a
Will-O-Wisp.
Yes.
It's it's pretty common on so it could have been there, but I can only think of the
I remember
because I think he switched it out. I think he switched it out at some point.
Yeah.
Once it got taunted.
I remember seeing the 2 moves. But so this made the Somerville Scraggies have such a advantageous positioning. He basically neutered the Dusclops, and well, it's a Purloin, isn't it? And this is where we see that it home claws the baton pass into the Azumarill, and then gets power whipped and one shot. So it was unfortunate, and I did really like the prep that the Scraggies brought with that substitute Inteleon, knowing his opponent isn't going to be running fast mons. He knows it's safe to be able to substitute. He's going to be wanting to set up with that lead he's bringing, so he knows he's not going to get targeted. So he can just set up the crits and just start shooting things, which is exactly how
was the Inteleon holding scope lens?
I think so.
That matchup. Yeah, so scope lens plus focus energy is an automatic crit every time. Plus sniper, 2.25 damage. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and surprisingly, the Tangrowth came in that match, and it's lived and a crit air slash. So it was quite a bulky Tangrowth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I do like what Lucaris are doing, which is trying to reinvent the team a little bit, trying these different strats out as they've seen. Honestly, if he needs any help or anything, I'm more than happy to give him a hand with some of his prep because I think his team could be really fun to try and prep with. Creating some
definitely
different strats. I'll have to have a look who he's actually playing. Oh, he's playing Masenko this next coming up week, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, if you're multiple weeks into a draft league and your team isn't doing very well, what you can do is run sort of meme strats. I remember in the WBE VGC when they were doing WBE VGC, the Aussie Gliders didn't draft a very good team from there at the very beginning, so they were basically forced from there to run a whole bunch of memes. And even though running those kind of memes isn't always a very viable option, sometimes it's enough to get just like the one win.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good thing that the Lucarios are doing right now. Even though they drafted such a very trick room heavy team without a way to counter the other teams' way of countering their trick room. And so when it comes to shove, just run a couple of memes, see if something happens, see if something sticks. I think that's something to I'm commending the London Lucarios for doing this season.
Yeah, I honestly, if there's nothing else, like it's as Bioptic knows, when you're this far into the season and you're still yet to get a win, it's huge respect from me at least for sticking it out. Like,
yeah,
100%.
It's so difficult to find that motivation to play, and yes, sometimes it's you end up just playing for the sake of playing, but it goes a long way in terms of how we think of you as a player and stuff. It's so nice that you're at least you've made the commitment, and yes, sometimes players aren't able to fully commit because of external affairs. So I'm understanding on that side of things, but it's nice that you're not just giving up on the league because you're losing or because you've not won a set. And honestly, I am rooting for the London Lucarios to take a set, at least one set, if not a full
even
win.
if it's just one game.
Yeah. And that honestly is what I think they should be aiming for next, just to try and get something out of this whole experience. So honestly, if they need any help at all, I am more than happy to give them a hand with their prep for 1 week.
Reach out to Matrix, reach out to me, Masenko, Bioptic. We'd all be more than happy to give you a few pointers. Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I was in that situation like this time last season. I only had the one win, and that was due to a forfeit dropout. So I can completely see where the Lycan Rocks are coming from. And obviously, I didn't give up. I just went through the season and finished 8-2. So you know, the win's coming. I think
8-2.
I think the win for the Lycan Rock, the Lucarios is coming.
Yeah, I really hope so, and I know I have to play them yet, so that's always a little bit of a worry for me. But yeah, I think they can easily get themselves a win, and I'm really hoping that we can do anything that we can to try and help you with that.
100%.
But again, Somerville Scraggies, brilliant out in it as always. Not a lot else we can say there. Great prep, great tech. So just a solid game.
I will. One thing I will say is obviously when we were watching the video, we all realised that Purloin gets baton pass, which is really interesting tech.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we move on to the actual first match of the week that was completed first. The match that was completed first, which was the South Croydon Saws versus the Bavarian Landorus. And I believe going into this match, I was already slightly backing the Bavarian Landorus. It was a tough call. Like, they're both two great players, and the South Croydon Saws have had a great run up to this point. They got their first loss last week. And it's unfortunately they took a loss this week as well. But I honestly think the Bavarian Landorus just played really a solid game.
They played 3 really solid games.
They did. I think all 3 of the games, even the game that they lost, was still really good. Their prep was great. They knew that the opponent was going to be trying this fast mode, the South Korean Saws. We all know it's super fast. It's hard to stop. Exactly. So Bavarian Landorus led what almost appears a passive lead with Wigglytuff and Ordino. Now, what I really liked about that is that it ended up facing off against, I think, Terrakion and was it Indeedee maybe?
Yeah,
And
DD tracking.
and it was either Indeedee, Terrakion, or Terrakion plus Tornadus, and I can't remember which. I don't think it was Tornadus. But all I know is that the Bavarian Landorus maxed the Wigglytuff, one-shot the Terrakion with max Starfall, and the Ordino freely got a Trick Room up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's this thing, this reoccurring theme we're seeing with the South Korean Swords is that they are just finding out, they're still trying to find out the best way for their team to handle this Trick Room pressure. I imagine most teams who will be going up against them now won't be relying as heavily on Trick Room against them because they've taken 2 losses to Trick Room back to back. So the South Korean Swords will be prepping for that Trick Room. So teams that are going to be going against the South Korean Swords are going to be going, right, well, I know Trick Room does well, but I know they're going to be more aware of it this time. They're going to be prepping for it that little bit more. So I think it creates this interesting mind game going into future matches.
And I think with their team going into the draft, they knew that Trick Room was a thing. They've got a couple of anti-Trick Room mons. Well, you don't want me to go over this. Do you want me to go over this Matrix or not?
No, we can go over. Like we know that he's got the Indeedee, which can do it in prison Trick Room, and it can't be faked out. We know that he's got the Gengar in prison Trick Room, which is a ghost type and can't be faked out. So like 2 fairly reliable in prison users to prevent Trick Room. I mean,
and even some lower speed mons that could also just kind of work in his Trick Room. He's got the Sand Slash.
Yeah,
Octillery's slow enough to where it could work in a Trick Room setting. So he's got pieces there. I just don't think he's very comfortable with it just yet. But I think it's something he's gonna have to get comfortable with if he wants to take down these more dedicated Trick Room cores.
But then going back to how the actual match went. So game 1, as we said, that Terrakion went down. The Landorus had the Wigglytuff out. They had the Ordino. The Ordino was just there as pure support with like helping hands. It had Trick Room. It had Mental Herb to prevent taunts from the opponent, which is great. I still really love the Wigglytuff Max. The amount of damage it was doing to some of his mons was surprisingly strong.
Wigglytuff was life orb as well, wasn't it?
Oh, it could have been. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm just
trying. It was good to see Wigglytuff doing that much damage.
Yeah, it was really creative and it was a really effective.
Even without a competitive boost.
Yeah.
Even without a competitive boost.
It was Frisk, so he was able to scout straight away where the items were on the opponent, which is again really nice tech.
Frisk is a really underrated ability in a draft league format specifically.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else happened that game 1. I remember there was a mon that was just left by itself. Obviously, the South Korean Swords brought like Darmanitan, Tornadus, Indeedee.
Like a freaking truck.
Oh yeah, Darmanitan is so strong. I mean, that's sheer force.
Yeah, it KO'd from down the maxed Wigglytuff. I think even though Wigglytuff was at over 50%, and that's not even from a stab move. That's just from a Flare Blitz.
From a super effective move.
Granted, Flare Blitz is a very strong attack from a very strong mon boosted, probably with sheer force, but that's still an impressive feat. If you can KO a max mon from low or whatever non-maxed is, that's an impressive feat, regardless of strength of move.
So game 1 was a great win for the Bavarian Landorus. Game 2, they changed up the sets, and what was interesting here, I was so when I saw the leads, because obviously we're watching from the South Korean source perspective, I was thinking, oh, is he going to max the Latios here? Is he going to max the Latios here? And he does. So he leads Latias and Ordino. And the Krizzle leads Terrakion and Tornadus. And I'm thinking, oh, if this Latias has got weakness policy, man. If this Latias has weakness policy, it would be so good because of the brutal swing comes out to boost the attack of the Terrakion. Does over half health to the Latias, and then Max Mindstorm does just about 50% to the Terrakion. And if that was weakness policy, it wasn't weakness policy in the end. It was like, oh no, that would have been such a great play. But
it would have been so
I
good.
completely understand why it wasn't weakness policy because of he was so scared of the opposing Latias that the South Korean Swords had having weakness policy and doing more damage and better to his. So I think he was just playing it a bit more defensive with that Latias. And it was good. He managed to set the Trick Room again with the Ordino because the South Korean Swords didn't target down the Ordino turn 1. He managed to get the Trick Room up again. And what's really interesting about this match is that at some point in the game, Wigglytuff comes in, blizzards, hit like a naked blizzard, hits both the Tornadus and whatever else was on the field, and the South Korean Swords had Yachiberry on the Tornadus, so if not for that Yachiberry, it would have died.
Yep.
Turn two, not turn two. The next turn, the same thing happens again. He goes for the helping hand into the Wigglytuff to make sure he KOs this mon and to do as much damage as he can to the Darmanitan, which is out on the field. Yeah. And it misses the Tornadus. And in the grand scheme of things, it was a big miss. Like, obviously, you're using a move like Blizzard, which is 70% accurate. These things happen. It's expected that you're going to miss a Blizzard.
Especially if you're not running some sort of hail on your team.
And I don't think like missing this Blizzard was like be all and end all. It was still like he was still in a good position. What ended up happening was after that, when the Wigglytuff went down and he brought Urshifu out, and again, I really liked how Urshifu was being used this week as this in the back revenge killer. And what ended up happening is he went for the. Did he go for the Wicked Blow or something?
Wicked Blow.
No,
Wicked Blow into a Sand Slash, right?
No, he went. No, you get ahead. No. Yeah, you're getting a little bit ahead.
We're too ahead. Okay.
He went for a Sucker Punch, I think it was, to the Darmanitan, or he did something to the Darmanitan, and it lived on 1 HP.
No, it was definitely. I think that was a Wicked Blow.
Yeah,
it was either a Wicked Blow or a Close Combat.
It was one of those. I just don't remember what it was, but I know he attacked the Darmanitan, and it lived on 1 HP, health. And that was so unfortunate. I think that was the same turn that Ordino used Trick Room and the Tornadus used Tailwind. Because then you've got if that Darmanitan hadn't have died. It hadn't have survived on 1 HP, it would never have hit the Flare Blitz off it into the Urshifu and knocking it down to its sash. So the Bavarian Landorus, I thought, played a good game here. They just got a little bit on the unlucky side of things. Because then the Sand Slash comes in from the back. The Sand Slash usually would underspeed the Urshifu. But because of the Tornadus had previously used Tailwind, this Sand Slash is actually now outspeeding the Urshifu. But because Trick Room is up, Urshifu was able to hit first. And I don't know if it was much of a misplay per se, but the Ordino used Dazzling Gleam and the Urshifu used Wicked Blow. And I don't know if maybe Funky was just like caught a little bit off guard with the speed tierings because there was a lot going on in terms of who was moving first and what with the speeds. Like it was very possible that this Sand Slash was minimum speed ready for Trick Room, and a Tailwind would still mean it wouldn't have hit. But like Tailwind wouldn't have boosted it above the Urshifu.
Didn't he helping hand into it?
No, this is the thing. He used Dazzling Gleam and Wicked Blow into the Sand Slash.
Oh yeah, that's the term we're talking about.
Yeah,
that's the term.
And then it lived on 39 health, didn't it?
Yeah, lived on 39.
Yeah, lived on quite. No. Yeah, it KO'd the Urshifu in return. And if the Ordino had gone for a helping hand that turn, I think that 1.5 times boost would have been a lot more than the 6 health that the Dazzling Gleam did.
Yeah.
But I do understand that at the same time, like he doesn't know if the sand slash is sashed.
Right.
So I can understand why he's gone for that play, and so if he had gone like it could have been a role. It could have been within that role where an Urshifu could have picked up the KO. I don't think it was because it was just a little bit below in the terms. But
Yeah.
if he'd gone for that, as I say, if he'd just gone for that helping hand, it would have KO'd the Sand Slash. Now, do I think that would have won in the match? Probably not, because he's still got a Tornadoes on the opposite side, near full health. Ordino's going to be doing nothing, and it basically would have killed the Urshifu that turn.
Yeah.
I think the unluckiness came from that live on that Darmanitan. If that Darmanitan hadn't have lived, then the Urshifu would have been in a much stronger position, KOing this Sand Slash, taking a hit from the Air Slash from the Tornadoes, still being in Trick Room, helping hand, boosted Wicked Blow into this Tornadoes, dead.
Yeah.
So it was all came down to that Darmanitan living on that 1 HP, and that is why we ended up going into this third match. And this third match was really good.
Such a good match.
The Landorus side led the same as what they led in game 1. And I believe the South Korean Swords did the exact same as well. They led Indeedee Terrakion. The only difference being this time is that the South Korean Swords maxed their Terrakion. Now, I can see why they did it. They did it so that they could max Rockfall into the Ordino, boost their special defense, expanding force to try and pick up the KO. And I think it was a roll at that range. I think there was a roll, like a roll count, because that Ordino was very close to dying.
Yeah.
The
even lived the sandstorm afterwards.
Yeah, but on like 1 HP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is where I think it was a little bit of a misplay because he used the Terrakion to max. He used his max up. The Rockfall was to boost his special defense for the oncoming attack from the Wigglytuff, which he's expecting. And he does live. But if he had just not maxed there and gone for a straight close combat into the Ordino, then the Terrakion served its job. It wouldn't. With the double up with the expanded force, the Ordino would have died. We know this because of how close it came with a max rockfall, and obviously max rockfall being about 130 base power is similar to the 120 base power of close combat, but close combat is stab super effective, so it's super effective onto the Ordino, so it would have done that enough damage to pick up the KO with the expanding force.
Right.
And given that situation, yes, he's traded the Wigglytuff for the Terrakion. The Terrakion does go down. Not Wigglytuff, the Ordino for the Terrakion. The Terrakion does go down. You've got the other terrain up, Misty Terrain, but you've not got that Ordino, which has been a little bit of an issue for him at this point, setting the Trick Room. Otherwise, Ordino just set the Trick Room. It died to sand later on. Lovely free switch into one of his other Trick Room, his other Mons on it, which I don't remember now. I think it might have been Urshifu in the back. And I think it was just that little bit of a not so much a misplay, but a misjudgment of what to do on turn 1.
Yeah.
I can see what he was doing.
Because the thought process is there.
Yeah.
With setting the sand, rock types get a special defense boost in the sand. He thinks maybe I could live an extra hit or something like that. But I think in this instance, the trade-off between a fainted Audino and a fainted Terrakion is a fair enough trade from the South Korean Source perspective.
Especially if you're denying that trick.
He's got faster Mons in the back.
Yeah.
And he can just use his speed. He can just use his speed to brute force the rest of the game. But
and yes,
when you let the Trick Room setter live and he sets the Trick Room and it just does everything else, he has to stall out the Trick Room, and it just becomes a whole different ball game if he just stays down and does what is going to be a guaranteed kill onto the Audino.
Yeah.
And yes, the Terrakion is probably his go-to max target in this game, but he's not been afraid to max the Tornadoes before. And the Tornadoes in the back was probably could have just done as well, because of as long as you can serve it amongst that Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is quite squishy. It does die pretty quick.
Yeah.
The Darmanitan showed that it can do enough damage to Wigglytuff, and now you've not got Trick Room up, Darmanitan can do that damage. You've got the expanding force onto the Urshifu to get it down to its Sash if it was running Sash. Then the you bring in the Tornadus later on, you're outspeeding, and it becomes a little bit too much for the Bavarian Landorus at that point. Like, if you've got like a few speed boosts across your team, then even the Latios in the back is struggling to match pace. And yes, it can fire off a Draco Meteor to do big damage, but then it's going to be at -2 special attack, so it's always going to be that struggle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that being said, I think they both still played good games. I think Bavarian Landorus just played a better, more controlled game. They knew what they were going to do when they came. They knew what the game plan was, and they executed it really well. They got that order notice at the trick room, really put the pressure on the South Korean Swords, and ultimately, just due to the like really good plays from the Landorus, they managed to take the win reasonably comfortably, in my opinion, 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I really like what the Landorus have done this season with their Urshifu, where most of the games that they've played, Urshifu has if they've bought Urshifu, it's always been in the back, and then it's come in and then it's just cleaned up.
Yeah, and the only time that they brought it in the front was one of the times that they lost.
But
right.
This in my opinion is an improvement from like the last week. Like, I thought his sets were creative, but they worked. The Sableye, although it never actually came, I will put touch note on this. I did notice in the set when he posted the sets, it had an attacking move this week. So he prepped for just in case some weird and wacky situation the Swords could do, which makes sense when you're going up against a team of the Swords with psychic terrain. So he did have a move to at least do something if he ever wanted to bring the Sableye, but I don't think he was ever intended to. He brought this alternate mode and it worked really well. So great game.
The Max Whitby stuff was really good as well.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I really like this idea of maxing mons that you wouldn't normally think about maxing, but in this situation, it was really good. I mean, to be able to one-shot a Terrakion and put so much pressure on that Terrakion is really good. So, GG's to the Bavarian Landorus and commiserations to the South Korean Swords. Both teams played well, and hopefully the Swords bounce back and the Bavarian Landorus keep playing to wins.
There were 3 really good games to watch.
Yeah, no, I think they were some of the best games the Landorus have played, to be honest.
Yeah.
So then we obviously have the Lily Cove Lycanrocs versus Senko and the Drowsy Dracozolt. That was a 2 FF win to the Dracozolts, as mentioned earlier. And we get to the exciting match of the Charlotte Beedrills versus the Merseyside Marowaks.
What a matchup that was!
Yes, as talking about good, like great matchups. This
was a great match.
Like, really, there's a hierarchy of week 6 matches. Like this, my matchup is at the top. If it's not the top, it's near the top of the hierarchy.
I personally think the top match is the match we never got to see.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that afterwards. But the Charlotte Beedrills versus the Merseyside Marowaks, it was a very good game. It was a close game, is what you'd say. It was a lot of thinking was involved in this game, like switching, preserving, what they're going to do here, what's their lead, how are you going to counter this lead. Yeah, like, so we can talk about like game 1, I believe, was a win to the Marowaks.
It was. He led.
Yes,
played all with the Noivern, and I led Stoutland making its debut, and Gigalith.
And talking about these unusual mons that you would like to max, like Wigglytuff. Ooh, Claydol. Now,
that was good. That was really
so good.
Now,
so my whole thinking when I see Claydol is this is a obvious trick room stuff, and with the Noivern right there, I'm thinking Whirlwind. That's obviously it has taunt, but I'm thinking Whirlwind because the Johto Division is known for its roaring trick room, roaring trick rooms out, that kind of thing. We're just kind of known for this. And I put Roar on Stoutland just for this, but I thought about that and I was like, it's probably gonna do something before me, like a taunt or a Whirlwind. So I just went in Helping Hand and KO'd it. But then next turn, brings in the Barraskewda, free swap in. I'm thinking he's about to max this Barraskewda there for some super effective damage into the to the rock, but he ends up
and reset the weather.
turning into weakness policy Claydol that he just maxed with an iron defense boost
from turn 1.
Oh, that was such a thing.
So
Such a thing to think about. It was so good.
If I was to, I know the Merseyside Marowaks do their show and play of the week. The more I think about this, it was such a good play. Like it showed their prep and they executed it perfectly. They knew you would target the Noivern turn 1. They taunted that Stoutland, which they presumed was going to be a supportive Stoutland, which is exactly what you brought. They taunted the Stoutland, making it rely on having to either attack or have to switch out. And then brings in the Barraskewda. It's already raised the defense on the Claydol, so it can tank this flip turn. The flip turn into the Claydol, setting off the weakness policy as it max, and then flip turns back into Amoonguss, so you've got this redirector on the field to support this Claydol. It was just such a solid game plan that just worked so... It was never questioned in the match. You were never expecting it, so you would never try and disrupt this turn of events, and it just did so much work. Is the surprise factor
and
alone?
If we're gonna credit the weakness policy Claydol set, we have to credit that Amoonguss set as well, because what I brought in that game 1 was Sweet Veil Alchemy, expecting a spore from Amoonguss, but lo and behold, its moveset was Protect, Clear Smog, Foul Play, and Rage Powder.
Yeah.
So there was absolutely no reason for Alchemy to be out there when the Amoonguss did not even carry the spore, which it's very much well known for.
I see that, and that's the reason why you did the switch then that turn, because you switched the Stoutland out into the Alchemy, and that poor Alchemy just got hit hard by the Max Quake off Claydol.
It lived it. It lived it, and then it came, and which actually played to my advantage, at least not in the battle at all, but in the battle reports at the very end when it comes to calculating kills.
It disrupted his kills, so he could have got 1 extra kill. Yeah,
it benefited me
because it was your own Sam that ended up KOing the Alchemy, and it was good. It was just the way the Bavarian Landorus, not Bavarian Landorus, the Merseyside Marowaks surprised you with this type of set. They had the Max Quakes, they had the Iron Defense boost. This Claydol was becoming a real pain to deal with, and I don't think you brought Volcarona to this set.
No, I did.
Oh, you did. It was Excadrill you didn't bring.
Yeah, it KO'd the it then KO'd Amoonguss at some point, I believe.
Yes, it did. And you were running Focus Sash, so the Barraskewda, I think, KO'd the Volcarona in the end.
Yeah.
But it was just super solid. And once the Claydol had come out of Max, it had the
stored
power to take advantage of these Max Quake boosts and the Iron Defense boosts to be like this super strong stab psychic move, just to try and sweep through what's left of your team. And it was doing some damage to like the Gigalith and stuff.
Yeah. It would never KO the Gigalith from full with just the stored power boosts, but it did enough in the game at the end to where it already had taken enough damage to where so 1 would KO. Because I think it took like 50% at one point to at some point. I think at some point it took like 50% from a stored power with all of its boosts. So.
Yeah. But it's nice because of he didn't have to rely on Earth Power to do the damage, which he knows won't KO and would activate your weakness policy.
Right. Which was scouted out from Frisk.
Yeah. So, well, that and the fact that I think he planned that the Gigalith was going to be weakness policy. Like it's a common item for Gigalith to run. You always got to be careful of like triggering that weakness policy on a Gigalith. But it was just a solid game plan and executed really well for that game 1. And then I think game 2, you adapted really well. You realized that this Claydol's got a little bit is an issue, and you decided that your max candidate was going to be your Volcarona, which was relatively offensive, and it put in the work. It threatened the Claydol. I think it KO'd the Claydol before it could max.
Yeah, it
Oh no, it did
No,
max.
it
It did
didn't
max.
KO the Claydol. It was Excadrill. Excadrill KO'd the Claydol.
Yes.
I
Yes,
brought
it
Excadrill
did.
this game. I weakened it with a couple of max overgrowths. I was willing to give it the weakness policy because it still wasn't hitting extremely hard even with it. Because if my Alcremie took it was a stab max quake, it still took it. So I realized that, hey, even though it's got this weakness policy, it's still not hitting very hard.
Yeah.
So I can still so I'm willing to give it this weakness policy boost in exchange for more damage down the line. So I was able to give it a overgrowth from protect, so it got it off, but it still took about 40%, I would say, probably. And then it got then it maxed. It got well, no, game 2 we both maxed turn 1, so it got like, even with the max a special defense boost from Max Quake, it was still doing enough to where a single Iron Head from Excadrill was enough to was enough to KO it from Max.
Yeah. So
And I think what was really also key in that matchup was, instead of targeting the Max Claydol turn 1, I Max Flare the Glastrier. I think that was also something really key there, because it went down even with protect. I think it went down to 50% or something like that. So it really wasn't something I really had to worry too much about after that.
Yeah. I think the max flare into the Glacier was okay. Was a decent play. If he hadn't protected there, then that was a dead Glacier. So it did some good damage there. The Claydol, what I really liked was when you max overgrowth and you doubled up into that Claydol spot, because of that I think was near a roll to KO with the max overgrowth and the Iron Head from the Escab. I think it was like either a roll or just within the roll, you know?
Yeah.
And
it probably was a roll, because I think it may have even it didn't get a defense boost that game. So maybe it would have been a roll in my favor at some point, maybe even from Max, but because ground types don't actually resist steel. So that was a normally effective move from a Max attack Excadrill. So if it was a roll, I think it would have still been in my favor, but probably still a roll nonetheless.
But I'm just going based off like the super effective damage from a max overgrowth was doing 40%. But
I still knew it was the threat. I knew it was still the threat at the time, so I had to KO that.
I think the only one mishap that you made, like not mishap, but like a little bit, you could have gone for Snarl instead of charming the Glacier. One of the turns, like you didn't need to charm the Glacier there. You could have gone for the Snarl just to make sure one of your mons lived for longer. But
fair, I didn't. I charmed it because I didn't know its only attacking move was basically body press. I didn't know it at that time.
Yeah, that's fine. That's true. I still think even if it was a standard Glacier, I think you didn't need to charm there. But otherwise, like you still won the game in the end. So it was like it didn't cause a detriment. I'm just like pointing out.
And then another key moment was I think he had it was probably Amoonguss and
Amoonguss and
Ice
Glacier.
Horse.
Yeah, Amoonguss and Glacier on the field.
It was facing Gigalith and Volcarona. Yeah, that's the name of that Pokemon. So but in that turn, he switches out the Amoonguss and protects with Glastrier, bringing in the Barraskewda. The sun's up from the Max Flare, so the Heat Wave does 50% to the incoming Barraskewda, and then the Rock Slide hits the Barraskewda, KOing it immediately, leaving my max speed Volcarona in with two very slow mons in Amoonguss and Glastrier.
Yeah.
And he doesn't realize that Heat Wave is a spread move, so making his Rage Powder essentially worthless in this matchup. He does bring the Occa Berry, which was a good bring, but I think in his situation, even with an Occa Berry, obviously I still took that match. So once that Barraskewda goes down, it's GG's for me.
Yeah, this is the thing. in this end game, the only way that you win that it was if you could remove that Barraskewda before it did any damage. And
Right.
this was the Merseyside Marowak's win con. They needed to preserve this Barraskewda to be switched in and just clean up. Because a Barraskewda, what you need to do is have a 2v1 versus a Barraskewda.
Yeah.
And then you would win, because a Barraskewda can only KO one mon at a time, but it can't take a double hit, as we saw. And that was from a not very super effective move. And this is where I think the Marowaks kind of threw the game. Like, they were in a decent enough positioning where they could have taken the 2-0 win. And they didn't need to switch the Amoonguss out there. They could have let the Amoonguss just do Amoonguss things and just let it die. Like, it still had foul play to be able to do some sort of damage to the Gigalith or the Excadrill, whatever mon was still there. Yeah. Whereas the Glacier was burned, but it was basically just spamming body press at that point anyway, so using his defense stats, which it was running iron defense for. So, like, if he wanted to, he could have got some iron defense buffs and just started body pressing and doing some serious work.
But I'm getting very lucky with flame body procs with Volcarona this season. I'm getting very lucky with this. I think every game that Volcarona showed up and something physical went into it, it got burned.
I've only got one bit of flame body proc from my Moltres so far, and that was on a Meowstic. Bioptic's Meowstic.
Yep.
But going back to what I was saying.
One thing I do want to say is that that turn where you KO'd the Barraskewda when it came in game 2, that was pivotal, because if I remember
100%.
rightly, the Merseyside Marowaks were running Surf on Barraskewda and it was Choice Scarfed.
Right.
So that would have, if that had survived, that would have done some serious damage back to you the following turn.
I don't know how much damage it would have done, because if it wasn't Sun, and Barraskewda's pretty low in it when it comes to special attack.
Yeah, and I was pretty high on HP at that point. I think I was still pretty high.
The only thing I can't remember is whether Sun was still up on that turn, but I think it was.
Yeah.
I do believe Sun was up. Because I think that's why the Heat Wave did 50% or somewhere near damage as it did.
And
I think it did around 45% or something like that.
So so as I say, game 2 was where the Merseyside Marowaks kind of threw it a little bit. Like, you both played a good game, but they managed to get themselves into a good position, and they should have just left that Amoonguss in. Instead, they switched it out, and this is similar to what happened when I played them, where they left the Barraskewda in. It just sat there, took a hit, died.
Yeah.
And Barraskewda is a mon that you don't want to do that. It's like Urshifu. You want it to be able to come in from the back, or lead from the start and hit hard and then retreat, or come in from the back and just clean up with the damage from mons that you've chipped. So I think doing a hard switch there was a really bad play. I think it should be classified as maybe blunder of the week, because he just handed you the win there. You still had to play. You still had to play from that position though to make sure that you could win, and you played that well. So I still think you played a good end game, even after the Barraskewda did die.
Yeah, I realized Volcarona was my win condition.
Yes.
Following game 1, I knew the Volcarona was my win condition, but that also had to be coupled with Barraskewda not being on the field.
Yes, exactly. I
think that comes into play in game 3.
Yeah, exactly. And this transitions brilliantly to game 3, where so one thing we haven't actually stated properly yet is that this Barraskewda is Choice Scarfed, and the reason for it being Choice Scarfed is so that it can outspeed a uninvested type your sand rush mons like Excadrill and Salad.
Really any of my sand rushers,
which you got 3 of. And that was such a good bring, because of where you would like to have been relying on speed, you couldn't rely on that speed. Because of this Barraskewda was always going to be doing damage to one of your Sandstream mons.
But I didn't have a max striker.
We move into game 3, and you lead your Volcarona and your Stoutland.
Yeah.
Wherefore he leads. I think it's the same lead as
same game 1 lead.
Yeah, same game 1 lead. So you're both using your leads that you won with. And I think the Marowaks were really smart in this game, where they recognized that you were going to be out of the 2 mons he had on the field, which was the Noivern and the Claydol. Noivern, you haven't really got a move on your side that's going to damage this Noivern a lot.
Yeah.
So what he does is protects the Claydol, expecting a max overgrowth from the Volcarona, triggers his weakness policy, and I think the Stoutland just goes for a Snarl, which I think was that was the perfect play. That was exactly what you'd expect it to do. Lowers the special attack of the Noivern, which is good because then it hits your Volcarona with an Air Slash. But that Air Slash did a lot of damage for a -1 -1 hit.
I still did a whole lot of damage.
Yeah, and I think Stoutland was really good for you in this game because it kept you in the match. The only issue is that it was also the downfall in the fact that he wasn't targeting it, and
it very much had all my friends are dead syndrome.
Yes, it did. It did get a little bit like that.
One thing I noticed later into that matchup was I noticed at one point, I think I was still up 4-3 at this point, and I see that he's only got like a minute 5 left. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can solve about immediately that turn. He immediately takes like a 3-2 lead or something like that. He turns it into like a 3-2 lead. So I no longer have the timer as my win con.
Yeah. Because these were long matches, and the reason why these were long matches is because you were both playing both aggressive and then defensive. So you started off being quite aggressive with your play, but he played very defensively, and stalling out your Dynamax, which was pivotal for his win. Because he knows if this Volcarona starts picking up these KOs, he needs to deal with this Volcarona as soon as possible. But he can't bring this Barraskewda in just yet to deal with the Volcarona. So he needs it to on max. And with a few key switches, a few good protects, like the protect into Claydol, not wasting his max on this weakness policy broken Claydol, bringing in the Amoonguss for the next max overgrowth, and just stalling out this Volcarona. But then, in turn, you did well as well, because you'd snarled the Noivern down a lot, so it wasn't doing damage. He switches it out, brings it back in again afterwards, and he maxes the Noivern, when really, he could have maxed either one. He had Barraskewda on the field and Noivern, and you could equally presume that he'd be maxing either one at this point. You were not sure.
Yeah.
But you go for a Snarl instead of the Charm into the Barraskewda, which I think was the right play, because of the Barraskewda, I think, flip turns or something, and then it flip turns into the
I knew it was
Volcarona.
Choice Scarf because it is only clicked 2 moves in its entirety of being in this either games 1, 2, or 3. It's either flip turn or close combat. He never clicks Surf. He never clicks, I guess, what's the other move? Poison Jab or Ice Fang or something.
That and the fact that it's outspeeding your Sandrush mons.
Right.
That's how you know it's Choice Scarf. But you then stalled out his Dynamax, which I thought was really good. The only issue is that from his Dynamax, he was getting speed buffs onto his Noivern. Wherefore, obviously, with your Dynamax, you were just set into Rain.
Right, and that speed was enough to outspeed my Stoutland and Sand.
Yes, and your Excadrill.
Yeah,
which became
in this case mainly the threat to his team is sort of the Stoutland at this point, even though it's very much still has the all my friends are dead syndrome.
Well, this is where it became a little bit tricky because the Noivern had the speed boost. The Excadrill that came in with the sand and everything, we might be skipping over a few bits here, but this is the next notable point of the match.
Right.
The Noivern is now able to outspeed an Excadrill in sand. So he's just spamming this air slash into the Excadrill, and where you needed a flinch on the Amoonguss or something on the Amoonguss to get you into a good position, he gets a flinch onto your Excadrill before you can even move. Then the Amoonguss hits you with a foul play, doing approximately 50% to you, just over. And this puts you into a really bad position because you haven't got rid of these mons, and Amoonguss is a threat for your team at this point. You've got Gigalith, you've got Excadrill, and you've got Stoutland.
He's taken down Volcarona at this point.
Yes.
So I have nothing for Amoonguss.
I think once your Volcarona died, it didn't give him the win, not to say that. I'm saying it became infinitely easier for him to just play around your remaining mons, because of the only way he was really going to lose was if that Volcarona removed his mons. And he played around your mons just that little bit better, which is obviously why he managed to end up winning. You both played a good control game. It was just a shame
it was a really good game.
Yeah, 100%. Like it was really intricate. Really, a lot of thinking was involved, and a lot of smart switches and preserving and reducing damage. So there was all this really complex turns going on, and this is evidence as to why the match was so long. You were both trying to build up to this advantageous position, and unfortunately, I think it came down to that first turn where you maxed straight away, and because you maxed straight away, he was able to stall you out first, and then he was able to steamroll off that, because then you haven't got that offensive pressure towards the late game, which you could have possibly done with. And it's all easy saying that in hindsight. Like I still think it was a good outing for you. Like you still played well. I'm just talking about it. Like just sort of pointing out where it might have been lost. But honestly, great games from both players. Like the tech on both sides was so good. Like the clay doll, the Barracuda scarf, and your Stoutland was doing good work with the snarls and the pressuring his team, and the
I really liked your Volcarona.
The Volcarona, I was trying to think of what his name was, and Volcarona was a good bring. And I know you never use like Rage Powder, I think, or to be honest, Rage Powder might not have been needed this week.
Yeah, I probably could have played it better if maybe that was Protect. I mean, I think Will-O-Wisp on the set, even though I never clicked it, still had a purpose, but its purpose never appeared in that matchup. I think it was a good bring, but I think Protect instead of Rage Powder would have been a better use of that move, because the Barracuda has Propeller Tail.
Yeah.
So that means it would be able to avoid it. So what Propeller Tail does is whatever you target, it's guaranteed to be that target, regardless of
ignores redirection.
Ignores redirection. So I could it ignores Follow Me, it ignores Rage Powder, it ignores Storm Drain.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind I was thinking if I KO it early enough, I could find some advantageous way to use it, but I never did, so I never bothered clicking it. So it was meant to be sort of a more offensive set with just this support thing in the back if I needed it, but it was definitely just more of an attacking set this go around.
I know sorry, Bioptic, go.
The Will-O-Wisp makes sense. I think the 1 or 2 turns that you could have used it, you ended up getting the Flame Body burns off instead, which is really funny to watch.
Yeah. Like I said, I think every week I've brought Volcarona, Flame Body went off. It Flame Body Grookey again. It Flame Body Grookey. Maybe it didn't Flame Body on Dark Lords. I can't remember if it did or not. But I was just going like, okay, the Glastrier is body pressing into Volcarona. Can I get this burn, please? At least I don't think at first I don't think he does. I'm like, oh, he doesn't. Then he does. I'm like, whoa, that's good. Even though in the end it didn't really matter, but I just think it's funny that I'm getting
it still chips him, man. It still forces him to then rely on body press. So
yeah.
But no, like I thought this was a really good matchup. I knew this. I really liked all the matchups that were happening this week, and I believe it's because I feel like both you and the Marowaks, after playing both of you, you're both similar in your play level. Like I'd say you're about on par with each other, and it kind of like you both still make some mistakes here and there, and you both still like get into full grips like with the in-depth VGC stuff.
Yeah,
but you're both,
maybe
I would say, on par.
Maybe some of my switches in Game 3 weren't fantastic, but otherwise it was still a good game for you.
Yeah, no, it was a great game.
Amazing. Good game,
the same could be said for him with his switch with the Barracuda. You know, it's like I think you're both pretty similar in not play style, but play level, like your both abilities. And I think like given you meeting in the playoffs, I think you could just as easily have taken a win.
Yeah.
So really exciting that result. And I'll just bounce back onto one of the future fixtures. It's similar to why like the Charlotte Beedrills versus the Marowaks, why I feel like they're a similar matchup, is like how I feel with the Dark Lord Ninjas and the Southeast Luxrays, and we'll get into that in a bit.
That's
But
fair.
we'll move on to the Chroma Colossals versus the Amateur Alchemies, and Jesus, man, this Morlul.
Morlo does it again.
So this
2-1
league is
winner.
known for two things. We're known for roaring, whirlwinding, or circle throwing trick rooms, and we're also known for the Morlul that could.
Oh, I'll tell you, this Morlul so nearly could as well. I believe I'm just seeing if I can find the match results. Okay, so it was a 2-1 win for the Amateur Alchemies versus the Chroma Colossals. Now the first game went to the Chroma Colossals. And I know some of the tech that the Chroma Colossals was bringing. I know the Amateur Alchemies were planning on doing like Tailwind, Crobat with G-Max Lapras. And trying to get off damage that way. But if you can just find out the running commentary that Dragon, which is the Amateur Alchemies, provided me with, as it was going along, he just sat there messaging me. I was like, what's going on here? And I'm trying to see if I can find it. When did they play? A couple of days ago now, isn't it?
Was it Friday night or Saturday night?
Yeah. I'm just trying to see if I can find it.
This might have been a Sunday matchup. I remember the majority of these matchups actually happened on Monday.
Here we go. Okay, so but he was messaging me through it and he was saying, I was like asking, did you win? He says no. And then he gets into a position where this Morlul is putting him to sleep. And we know how dangerous this Morlul is. And I don't know if the alchemies were running Sweet Veil or if they were running Aroma Veil on their alchemy. But obviously it wasn't used to a point where he was just putting... The Morlul was just doing the Morlul thing, which is just being so annoying. I can't... Unfortunately, we're having to go off hearsay for this matchup because there was no video. So it's making sure that I've got the order of events. But the Chroma Colossals, if I'm not mistaken, was using their Klinklang, which is their new pickup. And they were trying to set Trick Room with Klinklang, I believe, whilst redirecting with Indeedee. And this was good because obviously the Crobat is wanting to set Tailwind. So it's just the generic speed interactions, Tailwind or Trick Room. And I'm trying to think what the most impactful bit was. I think he maxed Colossal game 1, and I believe it lived on 1 HP. Living on that 1 HP, it was able to kill Chandelure and then Lapras. So massive first game win, which is great. Game 2, I believe the Raichu ended up getting put to sleep by Effect Spore from the Morlul. So not only is this Morlul putting them to sleep with Spore, it's also getting the Effect Spore sleeps in. And this was a really close game. I think it all came down to whether the Alchemies missed their Hydro Pump or not, and they didn't. They hit the Hydro Pump. I think there was a few freezes involved as well. I know the Klinklang missed a load of gear grinds, and the game ended up being a 1-0 win to the Amateur Alchemies, only just narrowly escaping their second defeat. And their first 2-0 defeat. And this is the thing with the Chroma Colossals. They are very creative with their sets. They're very effective with their sets. And game 3, I think, is where they were the most unlucky. Because this is a killer tech. The Alchemies led the Alchemy. Klinklang gets a helping hand boost from the Indeedee and goes for Steel Roller into the Alchemy. The Alchemy is Babri Berry, which halves the damage of Steel type moves. with the steel roller and helping hand, it's still one shot it.
Cool.
That's not a max cling clang. That is just a base attack, KOing through a Babri Berry. And the alchemies at that point were thinking, "Oh, I'm going to lose this." Unfortunately, the I think they just missed a few the gear grinds. I think they missed like 2 or 3 gear grinds, and you know this Morlul that could. It got crit by a Copperage Steel Spike, and was basically just one shot.
Oh Lord.
So I think that kind of solidified the win for the Amateur Alchemies at that point, because the Morlul could possibly have stalled out the Copperaja with Strength Sap and Spore and the likes, as we've seen against all these other physical threats. But the Copperaja was just left a little after that Morlul had died and the redirection from Indeedee had gone. It was just it was Colossal and Kling Klang versus the Copperaja. I think
Copperaja did work this week, didn't it? 7 kills.
Yeah, the Copperaja just swept through the rest of his team, 4-0, 4-1 in game 3. So the Amateur Alchemies, I think, got a lot of luck again this week on their side, although they got like sleep hacks with like Spore, but Spore is like a expected 100% move. The effect Spore, yeah, okay, that also took it into account. But again, it was a case of very lucky. Very, very lucky. I can't find what Dr. David said. It was such a shame. I really wanted to see this match.
Yeah, you giving us the rundown. It sounds like this is the game that everyone wanted to watch, but unfortunately nobody recorded it.
And I feel like I'm just not giving the game justice enough. Obviously, I never got to see it, so I'm only going off what they said. And it's a lot of, well, I think this happened, I think that happened. I think the key points are like this suicide Indeedee lead with the Kling Klang with the steel roller one-shotting through Babri Berry alchemy. That's so good. Trick Room, Kling Klang, Colossal coming in. The Colossal wasn't steam engine Colossal, it was flash fire. And this was and I think the Amateur Alchemies learned this. I think they'd got into a Trick Room scenario and went, okay, if I hit the Colossal here, then it's going to boot double up, it's going to go max speed, and then I'll be faster than it inside Trick Room. But that didn't happen. It didn't activate Steam Engine. And I think that's part of the reason why the Colossal managed to win out game 1. So
yeah,
it was really, as I say, it sounded like a really good set of games, and I wish I could seen it. I think the Colossals were so close to bringing this back, because obviously that's given them their 5th loss now, which puts them pretty much out of playoff contention. They're 1-5, wherefore the Amateur Alchemies are the flip end of that, and now we're 5-1. But for such a close match between 2 opposite ends of the division, it just shows how close our division is in terms of skill, prep, and play. And I think this was one of the first times we've seen the Colossals finally get back to the type of play that that I know them for.
Right.
So I seriously would be afraid facing them in the upcoming weeks.
I've noticed though, now that we've run them down, obviously they're the 2-1 games. Every game 3 could have gone one way or the other.
Oh yes, 100%.
Yeah,
very close matches. Very close matches.
That's what you expect late in the season, as we are.
Yeah.
Expecting a lot more 1-2 results. Maybe early in the season, you see a lot more 2-0s. We're still learning our teams, even though I assume we've taken time to think about our draft picks or whatever. But the later we get into the season, we start to know our team cores a little better. We get to see maybe what we can do with our team core outside of our main strategies to help us out. And even these tricky players like the Cryptic Colossals, and I'd argue you, Bioptic, once you really start to know what those tricks are, it could really benefit you in the long run.
Oh yeah, and obviously we're going to talk about tricks in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just to finish off, it was a very close match between
really
the
was.
Alchemies and the Colossals, and as I say, I'd be scared going up against the Colossals in the upcoming weeks. Man, they've got nothing to lose and only to have
I'm
fun with
glad
their
I
tech.
got them out of the way when they still were just that one team.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they've made some good trades and stuff, diversifying their team a little bit, and it's definitely going to be scary for some of the remaining players.
Yeah,
especially
And
that Morlock.
that Morlock is doing too much work. It's doing too well for what it is.
Right, exactly.
So we move on to our last fixture, which is the Southeast Lux Rays, a new Bioptic, versus the Dark Lords Greninjas. And although it was a 2-0 win, I still think it was a great game. I think you played.
Really was.
I think you played really well this week, and I think your prep was really good. So
yeah, I'm obviously what I bought this week wasn't my original plan.
Mm-hmm.
As obviously you were aware, obviously I was originally going to weakness policy Meowstick.
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
With Fling Pepper Berry Tapu Fini.
What the?
I forgot all about that. I'm so glad you didn't bring that in the end. I hated that.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And then up until Sunday night, I was going to be running Ring Target Trick Meowstick to then nullify the Cedar Stealer's flying immunity.
Yeah.
For Rillaboom to then hit it hard.
And
then I woke up Monday morning. Yeah.
I mean ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, here with the Matt's Quake.
Yeah.
To get rid of the ground immunity. And then I woke up Monday morning and I was like, I don't know if I like this because it's a very one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Style of game plan.
And it's also
one
hard
trick Meowstick.
Yeah. It's also a hard situation to get into because you're having to rely on a Meowstick getting off its trick and then being able to hit it. I think that's a little bit more difficult than what you're about to explain.
Yeah. So then I woke up Monday morning and I was like, I don't like this. I'm running Meowstick back as a basic. So I gave it Mental Herb, Screens, and T-Wave. I was like, that, the standard Meowstick set that I run that you all see. And then I was like, I'm definitely missing something here. So obviously I had Mist, Nature's Madness, Scald, and Protect on Tapu Fini because obviously, as we've seen throughout the season, Dark Lord Greninjas has a ton of fake out pressure. So near enough every single mon that I had this week had Protect. And then I noticed that I can get, because I was really struggling to prep the Cedar Stealer. That Cedar Stealer really hurt, really worried me. In prep when I was practicing against with Zam, the Cedar Stealer was just absolutely steamrolling me. Once it got those special attack boosts off, I was always in a bad place.
Yeah. And
so then I thought,
sorry, it's just to cut in. And one of the reasons why the Cedar Stealer was providing such a difficult time for you is because one, you don't have an electric type in your team.
No.
And two, your fire type mon is Center Scorch, which is 4 times weak to one of the most common moves the Cedar Stealer runs, which is Meteor Beam. So as well as its stab flying type moves. So this when you're facing off against the Cell Stealer, it's doing well up against your Rillaboom, it does well up against your Center Scorch, it does well up against basically every mon that you have. Like it's hard for you to hit this Cell Stealer hard. And with Celesteela, you need to try and get rid of it as soon as you can, or prevent it from boosting itself up, because it's one of the best mons in VGC, or it used to be before, in previous seasons gone by, it was one of the best VGC mons. It's one of the best singles mons, and it's one of the best draft mons.
Yeah.
And this is why you were running Nature's Madness, wasn't it? Like, it was because of it was a consistent damaging move, and I'll let you take it away.
So yeah, I decided to have Nature's Madness on Tapu Fini to obviously apply some apply some more pressure at the fact that obviously I can halve its HP in one turn, or take 25% off if it's maxed.
Yeah.
So still apply some pressure that way. And I was like, maybe Protect isn't the play here. Tapu Fini gets Soak.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran Soak on Tapu Fini to then Soak Celesteela to make it a water type, which then meant G-Max Rillaboom with G-Max Drum Solo.
On grassy terrain.
On grassy terrain, just OHKO'd it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
even
was
from
good.
Max, right?
Yeah.
Or was it not Max?
I don't. I think.
I know. I don't think it was Max in either.
Yeah, it was never Max when you KO'd it. But
okay.
No. So in game 1, I led Nidoqueen, Tapu Fini.
greatly.
And it was
greatly.
Grimmsnarl Suicune? No.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the lead.
Was it Grimmsnarl?
Or was it...
It was Grimmsnarl.
Or was it? It was Grimmsnarl. So obviously he, I think he faked out the Tapu Fini.
No, he didn't have fake out on Grimmsnarl. He had light
So maybe he
screen,
led
reflect.
Incineroar game
No,
1.
game 1 he did lead the Grimmsnarl. What he did was he immediately switched out into Incineroar.
That was it.
Yeah. Because you led the Nidoqueen expecting the Sludge Bomb into it, I presume.
Yeah, that was it. Because I went to Sludge Bomb into the Grimmsnarl slot.
But you turn 1 straight away. I think you went for Mist.
Yeah. Yeah. So turn 1, I dropped the Mist, and then Sludge Bombed into what would have been the Grimmsnarl slot that he brought in Incineroar.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Suicune Tailwinded.
Yeah.
And then it was a battle between my Nidoqueen and his Suicune as to who was going to KO who first, because Nidoqueen was running Thunderbolt.
Yes,
yeah.
With the
and
sheer
he
force.
got the KO. Yeah, he got the KO
also,
on the Celesteela.
I think it's also a little notable is that this is the second time that the Dark Lords Greninjas have faced Mist, because Masenko brought Mist in his matchup with Dark Lords Greninjas, and he still hasn't figured out what Mist does, or he had forgotten what Mist does, and I think that just plays more into we know that he's not very experienced in either Draft League or competitive Pokemon in general.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also something that was a good bring, definitely Mist, because he had completely forgotten what the effect of Mist was, because it's not A, very common, or B, very spread out, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
but what was most important about the Mist is that the reason why Mist is being brought is because of Dark Lord Greninjas has a very disruptive team. He's got Incineroar, which gets Intimidate, Snarl, and Parting Shot. And Parting Shot is blocked by Mist. So if Mist is up, you can't Parting Shot and switch out.
Well, it probably allows you to switch out.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't allow you to switch out. The move fails.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was an interaction I learned about during my prep by helping Bioptic prep when I was testing this out with Zam. And so you can't. It removes that type of utility that Incineroar would run. It also prevents the stat drops from a Spirit Break off Grimmsnarl, which is what he commonly uses. It also prevents the stat drops from Snarls off Suicune, and that's a common move for a bulky Suicune to use. And because of its team is so bulky and very orientated around of disrupting the opponent's attack stats and lowering them down, getting him into a more favorable position, especially with a mon like Celesteela, where you need to be doing this damage. Mist was a great way of stopping him from disrupting. Nature's Madness was a great way of cutting down his health without having to invest so much in like offenses. Or if he's got a assault vested Celesteela, which I think it was, or with like boosts, like Max Quake boost off something else, or it was just a consistent way to be doing a lot of damage. Although I do feel like you could have utilized it a little bit more than you did.
Yeah.
In the more accurate situations. I know for a fact that one time you were scolding a Grimmsnarl, and it took you 2 to 3 turns to do as much damage as what one Nature's Madness would have done.
Yeah. Yeah, it was obviously because in game one, as soon as he Dynamax a Celesteela, that same turn, I was debating switching out the Nidoqueen for Rillaboom because at this point I had already soaked the Celesteela, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. He's got 2 turns left of Tailwind, so he will hit obviously Rillaboom on the switch in, which I don't know whether he was expecting it or not because obviously he max airstreamed into the Nidoqueen slot, which then obviously boosted its speed. I was like, okay, so I'm not gonna outspeed because they've got Tailwind, and I don't want to switch Rillaboom in. I'd rather let Nidoqueen drop and then bring in the Rillaboom on their last turn of Dynamax.
Yeah,
because obviously Rillaboom was also Cobra Berry.
Yeah, that was in my opinion, that was the right decision. So they just maxed that turn. They max airstreamed your Nidoqueen, and that was the right decision to just let Nidoqueen go down there. Do whatever you wanted to do with Tapu Fini. I don't really remember what you did. And then the
I think
Rillaboom
scalded into the Celesteela slot just to
yeah,
get some chip off.
yeah, I think you did. Yeah, and I think there again is like there's a lot of instances where you go and I just want to get chip, and if you wanted to get chip, Nature's Madness, yeah, would have been more because that would have done 25% damage to a max Celesteela, wherefore like Scald does like 10%.
If that.
Yeah, so like I know you burnt it, but that made no overall difference.
It made no difference because Celesteela is obviously special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this matchup, it was special. It could have been vital if it wasn't, but
right.
The Rillaboom was good. Like I liked how you played that because you maxed it. I understand why you max quaked into the Celesteela, to get your Spadef boost.
No, I max quaked into the Suicune.
Sorry, Suicune. Yeah, you got the KO there, didn't you?
Yeah, I got the KO on the Suicune and the Spadef boost, which then nullified their special attack boost on Celesteela, which was still in Tailwind.
Was that
on this turn?
Was that the turn that your mist ended, or was it the turn after mist ended?
It was the turn. That was the turn mist ended.
Yeah,
because I KO'd the Suicune, and then he brought in the Incineroar
that dropped your attack.
Dropped the Rillaboom's attack, and then obviously he faked out the Tapu Fini, which then stopped me getting missed up that turn.
Yeah. So I think part of me thinks that you either should have like stalled out a turn without getting rid of either mons on the opponent's side of the field to re-establish that mist. Because if you're going to be taking the KO here, the Incineroar is going to be coming in and dropping your attack. So there is that. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is just to remove the Celesteela that turn. Like you took an Airstream. I think a G-Max Drum Solo on grassy terrain, 100% KOs Celesteela that. And I feel like instead of going for the max Quake boost, you could have just gone straight in and just KO'd it.
Yeah, because I don't actually know what item he was running on Celesteela, and to this day I still don't know because
Assault Vest.
Both times that I killed it with super effective, I killed it. They both went from like half health, didn't it?
Was it? Yeah, was it using pistol moves, I thought it was weakness policy. Doesn't do.
You thought it was weakness policy? Sorry.
Yeah, I thought he would have been running weakness policy.
Okay. I felt like that was why you were being careful because of about it. So I do understand why. So you did do a safe play to like Max Quake and Boosty Spadef, and then what I liked is that after you KO'd the Suicune, the Incineroar comes in, you realize that his max is about to end, so you protect your max guard your Rillaboom so that it wastes his last turn of max. So then you're doing more damage to him when he's out of max form. So I like that. That was a good play. That's exactly what I thought you should do in that turn. And the fact that Rillaboom was Cobra Berry was great because it means that it lived that Airstream. If it wasn't, I was thinking when you max it, I was thinking it's got to be Cobra Berry, right? It's got to be Cobra Berry. There's no way he's maxing this here and it's not Cobra Berry.
Otherwise... No, when I put Rillaboom into the team, I was like, I don't like it here because obviously the Pelipper, Celesteela, I was like, it needs to be Cobra Berry.
Yeah.
I was like, it has to be able to live a hit and then return some damage back.
Yeah. And what I so you ended up winning that set in the end, which is pretty well. I think, was it 2-0 you won that set?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is,
Haxorus came in from the back and cleaned up.
Yeah, Haxorus did really well on the back there once the Suicune had gone, and the Grimmsnarl, could Spirit Break, but Tapu Fini, man, was MVP of this match.
Tapu Fini was just so good.
And
then in game 2.
Yeah, I think this is where the Dark Lord Greninjas made the biggest mistake, is that they were never focusing on that Tapu Fini. Like, Tapu Fini was the mon that was allowing you to be as disruptive, allowing you to control the game.
Yeah.
And this is where they made the mistake going into game 2, where they led not Tapu Fini, they led Celesteela and Grimmsnarl versus your Tapu Fini and Drifblim. And now he's already aware that this Tapu Fini is a supportive-ish Tapu Fini. So in this situation, you're more than likely going to be using Haze off turn 1 to stop stat drops than you were to do another move like Scold or Nature's Madness. And your Drifblim, because of the Misty Seed popped off, he knows that this is a supportive Drifblim with a special defense buff. So he knows that this Celesteela, or he should be aware that this Celesteela isn't going to be doing the damage it needs to be doing to one-shot it. And that's where it went wrong. Like, if he really wanted to, he should have, like, maybe Meteor Beamed instead of maxing. So Meteor Beaming into the Drifblim, yes, it takes an extra turn, but it would have been +1 special attack, and then that would have KO'd the Drifblim.
Yeah, that would have 100% KO'd.
And I think he just got into this point where he maxed his Celesteela. He started targeting the Drifblim instead of targeting the Tapu Fini, because if he was just to max Overgrowth into that Tapu Fini wasn't living a double up, or it wasn't living 2 hits, you know?
No.
We saw later on in the game where the Celesteela energy balled it and took like half its health off.
Yeah.
And I think you played a really good controlled game to the start. You were you tailwinded.
I stalled out his Dynamax, I think, really well with the Strength Sap on
Drifblim.
On Drifblim.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, so Drifblim has just been taken down to just under half, and then it clicked. This is the bit where it clicked for me, and I think Dark Lord Greninjas made a massive blunder this week, where Drifblim was still on the field. I've just tailwinded. Obviously, he got the light screen up, and then I was like, okay, so something's going to happen here, and it didn't happen. And I realized that Dark Lord Greninjas didn't have taunt.
Yeah.
On the Grimmsnarl, because I was like, surely this turn here, he's either going to taunt the Drifblim, or he's going to taunt Tapu Fini.
Yeah.
And he did neither.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I was like, I can stall out the Dynamax here by strength sapping the Grimmsnarl to obviously drop its attack, but also get my HP back on Drifblim, because I knew for a fact that Drifblim was surviving.
Yeah. And what was really funny, so I think something was mentioned when we were watching the live match, like between Carmine and a few others, is that you got to a point where Drifblim was like really low in health, and you'd already dropped the Grimmsnarl's attack a lot. Celesteela's a special attacker, so you're never going to get back up to full health. But what someone pointed out is that would have been really cool is that when you switch the Rillaboom in, because you switched Rillaboom in over Tapu Fini.
Yeah.
And I think you went for, I don't know, maybe Tailwind on Drifblim or something. If you had gone for Strength Sap into your own Rillaboom on the switch in, regained full health, and then just switched Rillaboom back out the following turn for Tapu Fini.
That would have been so good.
Like, you would have just got a free instant refill on the Drifblim, stall out a little bit more, your Misty Terrain comes back up again, is reset. Because if he would have gone for the Energy Ball into the Tapu Fini, and it would have hit Rillaboom, so it's just kind of cool.
This game too was very much kind of a stall match from both sides, going down to I think this is the second consecutive week you've gone to timer Bioptic, or at least 2 in 3 weeks you've gone to timer.
2 in 3 weeks where a game's gone down to timer. So the first game was obviously against the Morlul, and then this week as well. But when I was playing this game,
you took what Morlul did and put it on your put it on your Drifblim with the string sapping from low all the way to full, or at least pretty high all the way to full.
Yeah, so my
It was
plan
like
with Drifblim was just to conserve it enough so that when Celesteela came out of Dynamax, I was going to haze and reset its stats, because it obviously didn't have a special attack boost because it didn't KO anything, but it had a couple of Airstream boosts.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at this point, obviously, because Grimmsnarl was still on the field, I didn't know what was in the back.
Yeah.
So I was like, at this point, I didn't want Suicune to come in on the same turn that I'm bringing in Rillaboom to then Tailwind.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, I'm going to conserve the Rillaboom, conserve the Drifblim to then get the haze off. And I was like, Drifblim will probably drop this turn.
Yeah.
But it dropped the turn before that I was able to get the haze off. But and at that point, obviously, I just then maxed the Rillaboom and then did the same thing again. So I soaked the Celesteela and
I think this when I think you'd already soaked the Celesteela at this point. Like Celesteela had been soaked for a while.
I swapped it.
What was upsetting for me when this happened was that as soon as that Drifblim went down, because you just swapped Tapu Fini out, I was thinking, Bioptic, don't bring Tapu Fini in here. Don't bring Tapu Fini in here. Please don't. You'll reset your terrain. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, he did it.
Tapu Fini.
He did it. I was thinking, you brought in Tapu Fini to switch it back out into Haxorus. I'm pretty sure. Because I remember
a little while later.
Yeah, okay, fair. I don't remember the exact turn of events. I just remember you get into a point where you go to this is past the max. You'd already KO'd the Celesteela at this point.
Yeah, I was out of max of Rillaboom at this point.
Yeah.
So my plan was, and it was a bit on me because I misclicked, and then I realized, and by the time I realized, I'd already done the second one's A.
Yeah.
So it was already on communicating. What I wanted to do was switch out Rillaboom for Haxorus to get the Unnerve off, and then the next turn switch Rillaboom back in with Tapu Fini.
Okay.
To then get the Grassy Glide back up. And I was expecting Rindo Berry Suicune.
Which is exactly what it was.
Yeah. An Unnerve Haxorus, and then obviously Grassy Glide on terrain from Rillaboom is going to hit hard. I never expect it to KO. I think it's always going to be
I think it was always a 2-hit KO based on how much it did outside of terrain. But
with the Haxorus there, obviously I was hitting for more damage because then it couldn't nullify it with the berry. But what I did was I targeted the Suicune with the Rillaboom and then swapped out something and brought in Tapu Fini in the same turn. And I was like, well, I've just done this the wrong way around. I was like, oh, well.
Yeah, I think that was the turn you maxed. It was, yeah. Or something.
Yeah.
And you brought the Misty Terrain up or something. I don't know. I just remember that Tapu Fini being on the field when I was like, oh, you need it. This is an issue when you're running dual terrain. Like Rillaboom really needed its terrain to do some big damage. I mean, you still managed to win. It's just like pointing out, I was like, oh, you just removed your terrain, and then that meant that later on when you come out of max, you don't have that grassy terrain to be able to grassy glide and do that damage. I really loved the plays you were doing with the mist. It was great. I think you could have been a little bit more aggressive with the Nature's Madness in that second game 100%. As well, because you ended up going from a point where you were in control to allowing him back into the match.
Yeah.
You shut him down at the start and then got to a point where he had somehow crept back in. And I think that's because you were kind of just switching Mons out when they didn't need to, or not using the better move on that turn, like Nature's Madness. The whole reason why it was there was so you could chip 50% KO with Rillaboom or KO with something else just to get rid of that damage. It ignores screens. And it was it was a little bit like, oh, Bioptic, what are you doing?
Yeah, the turn where I misread the situation and bought in. I think I bought in Haxorus or Tapu Fini, and then reset the terrain, and I was like, "Oof, okay, I probably shouldn't have done this."
Yeah.
And then it kind of that threw me off my momentum a little bit for a couple of turns, because then it meant that Incineroar had come in and then got the free KO on the Rillaboom when I should have switched it for Haxorus.
Yeah, I am pretty.
And then it kind of went that way. And then obviously I ended up in that 1v1 with the Suicune in the end. And obviously I was just spamming Nature's Madness.
Yeah, I did like though that you were aware that Incineroar was probably going to be in the back, and you still managed to get that Tapu Fini into a position where you could set the mist ready for the Incineroar to be switched in and ignore the Intimidate onto the Rillaboom, which is good because the Rillaboom really doesn't want to be getting attack drops. So that was really nice plays there. As I say, I really like the swap in for the Haxorus Unnerve to the to ignore any potential berries. Like I don't know, like at the time I wasn't sure if you were aware that's what you were doing, but like I was like, when I saw the Unnerve, I was like, ooh, that's a good play. Like this will change this mon from being like a 3-hit KO to be a 2-hit KO.
Yeah, so the plan, I didn't utilize Unnerve enough because obviously Incineroar got his Citrus Berry off. Obviously we never got the Rindo Berry off, but I never actually hit Suicune with a Grassy Glide. But my plan was to bring in the Haxorus and then Nature's Madness the Incineroar.
Yeah.
To obviously then nullify the Citrus Berry. And I knew from that range that either a Rock Slide or an Earthquake with a Life Orb Haxorus would probably KO.
Yeah, it would have KO'd, yeah.
But what I did instead was I think I bought in the Haxorus, but then I switched it back out, which then meant that Incineroar got the berry off, and then it just kind of like towards the end of game 2, I started to focus too much on. I went too many turns ahead.
Yeah.
Instead of just taking a step back and going, right, okay, what's the play here?
But no, I still think like you still did well. I mean, as in you managed to get it to a point where it was Suicune versus Tapu Fini, and based on the set that was brought for the Suicune, the Tapu Fini was pretty much always winning that because you were leftovers, so you were always getting some sort of recovery.
And then
obviously it went to timer in the end. The opponent had run out of turn time. I remember watching it and thinking, "Come on, Dark Lord, just keep spamming air slash, just spam air slash. Don't think, just so because if he was literally going from like 50 seconds, and he'd be using nearly enough all his time just to press air slash, and it's like, come on, dude, you got to see that it's really close to your turn timer."
So as soon as it came up for me that there was 2 minutes remaining, in my head I was like, "Wow, that's gone quick," because I hadn't even thought about the timer.
Yeah.
But as soon as those 2 minutes remaining came up, I remember the feedback that I got from the game against Krimmich with the Morlo. I just took a step back and I just let the timer run down because I knew that in that situation, I was in such a better position for if the timer ran out.
Yeah. For you, it was a pretty simple end game. You just needed to Nature's Madness a couple of turns and then just pick up the KO with Skull. And I think that turn that it ended, I think if you'd gone for Scold that last turn, I know you didn't, you went for Nature's Madness. I think if you'd gone for Scold, then at that point, you could have just run the hopes that you were getting the roll to KO. And if not, then you just KO at the following turn with Scold anyway. So it was pretty much over at that point anyway. It was a shame that it did go to timer there because of it meant that he didn't lose him on.
Yeah,
and you did get a kill.
It would have been nice for Tapu Fini to get a third kill.
Yeah. But no, I thought overall it was a great couple games. You played really well. I think the Dark Lords are massively regretting not bringing Taunt because of just the disruption that you brought. Like I think they're so used to being the team that disrupts that this week when you were disrupting them, it was a bit like, well, my whole game plan was to snarl and reflect and screens and stuff, and because they weren't able to like drop your stats, they got a little bit flustered. They didn't know what Nature's Madness does, and yeah, I think if it's their inexperience at the moment. Like this is their first draft league, and this is why I feel like they're similar to you as like with Charlotte Beagles and Marowaks. Like I feel like the Marowaks are the Charlotte Beagles of this season, and I feel like the Dark Lord Ninjas are like you last season, this season. I know they've got more wins this season than you did, but you were both quite new to the scene last season when you first joined this league, and you're both going through them same teaming issues with the with your teams and your prep and just your general gameplay, like unsure, unfamiliar with, and the only difference between you both season by season is that the Dark Lord Ninjas have got an incredibly good team this season.
They do.
compared to your last season.
That team, that prepping for Dark Lord Greninja's team was a nightmare.
But it paid off.
Yeah, it did pay off in the end. I think the soak tech and the way I ran Feeny is probably a massive reason into that.
Yeah, I think Tapu Fini was the MVP there.
The Dark Lord Greninjas, they're not actually a rain team. They're more disruptive in general. They're just like using the rain as a or hiding the disruption, because you can clearly see rain on their team, and you might zero in on it like I did last week, and you don't realize how disruptive that team actually is.
Yeah, and obviously Dark Lord did do a Bioptic classic where he tried to T-Wave Nest.
T-Wave.
I do so much.
Yeah, it happens. It happens to the best of us.
It does.
The terrains are the hardest things to remember.
Yeah.
Oh, it really is.
The side effects of terrains are the hardest to remember.
Yeah. I still do it now in VGC. I'm running a Tapu Fini in my VGC team, and I'm constantly trying to Will-O-Wisp Glastrias in my own misty terrain. I just forget. I just completely forget, and I'm just like, oh, well, that's an L.
Okay. Well, I think both players played pretty well, and I think it's only fitting in a way that it's not so much I consider like the novice. I consider like Southeast Luxrays were quite the underdog last season, and the Dark Lords Greninjas are like the dark horse of this season. And I feel like it's only fitting 100%. That team with the extra league experience managed to take the win this time around. But seriously, Dark Lord Greninjas, scary team. I think they can still bounce back. I think they're 3-3, both of you.
I think we're both 3-3.
Yeah, I think both of you two teams have an equal chance of making it into the top 6 by the end. And
me,
that's scary.
Landorus and Greninjas, Mezzside Marowaks are all 3-3.
Yeah, and then Bryan is 3-2.
I'm 2-3.
2-3, but with an expected win.
A half a game behind you.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm still in there. Don't be.
Oh yeah, no, you're definitely up there. So there's still a lot to play for as we enter into the 7th week.
Yeah, Cardiff Kamalas as well are 2-3 with a game in hand.
I think the Kamalas could be. I wouldn't count them out yet. They are a strong team. So
between the middle of the table is so exciting.
And we're just touching upon the middle of the table here in the top 6, where we've got the top 3 with the Amateur Alchemies, followed by the Drowsy Dracozolts and the Somerville Scraggies. And there's only a KD of 2 that differs the Dracozolts from the Scraggies. Very close up at the top here. And the Alchemies are quite content sitting up there, and as
is the KD the entire team or that one?
No, their entire team. No.
I'm about to say I didn't think Copperage has got that many kills already.
Yeah, no. Copperage has got like 21 kills.
Yeah, 21 kills is top of the kill log.
And second is the G-Max Lapras that they have. So they are dominating the kill leaderboard, that's for sure. But just with 2 mons. The Drowsy Dracos also say second, Somerville Scraggy's third. I'm clinging on in 4th. With a decent win-loss record. Primarina, even though it's not been for the past couple of weeks, is still my MVP. We got the South Croydon Swords with their 2nd loss this week, moved down from 2nd into 5th. And we see a new entry onto the top 6 with the Southeast Luxrays, just knocking the, funny enough, the Dark Lord Greninjas out of 6th. So and this is the highest. You are the highest scoring 3-3 team at the moment. So, but obviously some teams are still with a game in hand, such as Bryan. And if Bryan, I think the Charlotte Bee Drills are on a record that if they were to win their match, they would shoot up into 6th. So,
100%.
There's still a potential there.
Okay. 6th and 11th is so close.
Yeah, it really is. So the division, this is our rankings from last week. So just a preface going into next week, the Aggie/Blades have now dropped from the league as well. So we're now operating with a 14 coach division. All the makeup matches will be all the matches that the Aggie/Blades had have been rescheduled, and they are in the schedule section of the document. But I will be making an announcement probably over the next day or so. None of the matches are being impacted for this week 7, so they'll start. I think I've made some changes to the week 8 matchups, the week 9 matchups for sure, and the week 10 matchups. There's also a couple games to be played in the makeup weeks in week 11. So
yeah,
but I digress. So we have the current table. So starting from the bottom, I put the Lily Cove Lycan Rocks still in 14th, and this is only because they still haven't played a game since we last ranked them.
Yeah.
Like they've still got these games to make up. So I'm just going to keep them the 14th. The same reason for the London Lucarios. Yes, the Lily Cove Lycan Rocks have now had a forfeit win from the Aggie/Blades, so they are like a win above the Lucarios, but it's not like a win that they've gained themselves. So, it was.
I think
it was
the London Lucarios should be be rewarded for sticking it out for what they have, on their team, and the results they're getting. That they're still sticking it out. They're still trying. There's effort being made in the London Lucarios team, which I think needs to be rewarded by itself.
I think the Lucarios and the Lycan Rocks really a joint. They're kind of joint, but for the sake of a clear rank system, they're just going to keep it as we've been keeping it until it's been shown otherwise.
That's fair.
So at 12th, I have to kind of put the Crumb of Colossals just because they are still like 1 and 5. They've technically gone down in relation to their last week's standing, but they keep 12th.
Yeah, keep 12th. Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
So the Crumb of Colossals are in 12th. They lost their match this week. It was a close match though. If they'd won, I would have moved up higher. If not for the fact that the Kamalas never played this week, so we couldn't really justify I've already moved Kamalas down a place, even though they haven't played. And that's only because the Bavarian Landers played such a solid game against one of the top 4. They deserve to move up from like 13th to 10th. Like they really played a good game, and it's the best game that I've seen them play so far. So even though it went 2-1, I felt like it could just as easily have been a 2-0 team, if not for a few little things here and there.
Yeah.
So we move into the tops from the 6th to the 9th range, and we've kind of just rejigged the standings here, as both Bioptic and the Merseyside Marowaks won their matches this week, and the Charlotte Bee Drills and the Dark Lord Ninjas lost their matches this week. We have moved them around accordingly. So moving the Bioptic up from 8th into 6th seemed fair, because we're also moving the Merseyside Marowaks up from 9th to 7th. The Dark Lord Ninjas fall down from 6th to 9th because of it was quite a comprehensive win, in my opinion, for Bioptic. And a few mistakes on the Dark Lord Ninjas side shows that they still, even though they've got this really good team, they still have a few ways to go to avoid making these mistakes. And it wasn't terrible. It was a good match. I just feel like not bringing Taunt to a game where you've got setup Tapu Fini, you've got disruptive Drift Blim. It's especially with a team that has so many options for Taunt. One of them being priority. I feel like there was a little bit of a mishap on the prep side, and it just shows a little bit of as I say, just inexperienced.
Yeah, I feel like it was a mistake on the prep side, because if you look at the teams that I've bought every week, I've always, other than week 5 against you, I've always bought supportive Meowstick and supportive Drifblim.
Mm-hmm.
And Taunt would have been perfect for him. I feel like it was either he just kind of like slipped his mind that maybe Taunt would have been good, or he didn't expect me to be as supportive with Tapu Fini and Drifblim than what I was.
Yeah, and you still have that Meowstick for screens that you brought with you as well. So
yeah,
I know it was Mental Herb, but like you can only have Mental Herb on 1/1.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when I came against you, I still brought Taunt on Spectria, and I managed to get a Taunt off and prevent you from setting up with Carmine. So
yeah,
I think over Thunderwave,
always viable.
Yeah, I think over Thunderwave, that would have been the best move for the Grimmsnarl to have had, especially with the mishap that he made, especially when you're going against a team with Tapu Fini, where status isn't going to be coming into it as much. But it's fine. It's only knocked down a little bit. I still think like all these teams are so close. All these teams are so close and so easy to just bounce up and down.
Dark Greninja's team just terrifies me.
I think the only reason why Charlotte Beedrills have moved down a spot is because of the Marowaks had to move up just above them.
Yeah.
The Beedrills are in 8th, but it's like a really close. It's like I'd say this is the turning point. Like the 7th and 8th bit is where it's like the center of the division.
Yeah.
And
I would agree.
So there's this can all change. Like we're going into the last few weeks, and yet it's so, as I just keep saying, it is really close. I think you played a good game this week. You've definitely showed improvement from your first few weeks, even though you won some of them first few weeks comprehensively. Since your like week 2's match, you've learnt a lot more to identify how you need to respond to your opponent's games, like what they're bringing. Like identifying that Volcarona was your next best thing to deal with what he brought in game 2 was great, and it was just a shame that the Marowaks also identified that Volcarona was such a threat that they were able to play around it in that game 3. So very, very close here. I've just left myself in 5th because I've shown no other reason to move at all because I've not played this week. And then the top 4, I feel like I don't think there's a reason to change them. I know our actual leaderboards show the Amateur Alchemies being at the top, but they played a really close game and nearly got outdone by the same tech that both Bioptic and Masenko nearly got outdone by. So and he's had 2 games prior to be aware of that. So I think the Alchemies are fine being there. The South Korean Swords lost this week, and yes, you could argue they could move below me because if they lost, but I don't think that's reason enough to justify that move at the moment. Like we're both sitting on a 4-2 win. But like I believe that one of mine has been given through forfeit, so I think it's fair to keep the South Korean Swords up in 4th for the time being. And he played. It was still a close game in the end. So
played a really good game.
Masenko, I would move up, but there's no reason to move Tyler down.
Right.
He just
Masenko had a forfeit win himself as well.
He did.
Yeah.
So this is probably the least the rankings have actually changed. Just realized that's it. It was this one that I'm looking at. They're so similar. This is probably the least the rankings have changed since we started them. Like it's finally starting to stabilize a little bit. Still a bit of fluctuation around the middle. So it'll be really interesting to see what this week 7 brings. I'm actually not sure what matches are there. There's some key matches though, I'm sure. So we can just quickly mention some of the trades that were made this week, and there's only 2 trades.
Right.
So trade number 1 was the Bavarian Landorus have traded away their Haunter for Coughing.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested to see why. because I think it's a good mon. Like Coughing's a really good mon. Like Eviolite, great. I think he would be actually
neutralizing gas, fantastic ability.
Well, I think he's actually going to be running it more so for Levitate with Levitate and
too,
as a disruptive mon, because his team heavily relies on abilities.
Yeah.
He's got Pranks to Sableye. He's got Solar Power Charizard. He's got Lightning Rod Manectric. He's got Storm Drain Gastrodon. He's got Technician Scizor. He's got Unseen Fist Urshifu. And Frisk Wigglytuff / competitive Wigglytuff. It just, to me, it doesn't seem like he wants to be running neutralizing gas because of his, unless, I don't know what his future trades, his future matchups are, unless it's for like this matchup he's got here, which is the Grim of Colossals, with where he's running Steam Engine Colossal, and he wants to just kind of negate that as a bit more control. So there is the possibility that that's what he's planning to do. So it might be a match-specific trade. So I'm really interested to see what his plans are with that Coughing. Aside from that, the only other trade that was made is, what was it?
Was it Crimmage Colossals Tauros for?
Yes, it is.
For
Slurpuff. Yes, exactly. Slurpuff, yeah. I was just thinking the Colossals had made a trade, and yet for some reason I couldn't remember who it was.
And that could also play into the possible of a neutralizing gas, wheezing, coughing, because Slurpuff has it's my favorite ability, and I'm blanking
Unburden.
on it. But Unburden, yes, thank you. It has the Unburden, which can pair with the Psychic Seed to double the speed. Very supportive. Slurpuff, very memey in a way, so kind of fits the Crimmage Colossals playstyle a little bit. So I think it was a good pickup.
It's an interesting pickup, that's for sure. I know, obviously, Tauros.
Definitely an interesting one.
Yeah. Obviously, Tauros can be really good with like Intimidate, Pressure. It can do the thing that's been picked for, which is the Frost Breath crit tech with the anger points. I think I kind of like the Slurpuff pickup. I don't know if it's the best one, but obviously because the Colossals are now so far behind in the standings, that I think they're just going for enjoyment with it, which is exactly what you should be doing, in my opinion. Like if you're that far below, just have fun with it. And I know he's going to have fun with this Slurpuff paired with Indeedee, or maybe he wants to do some sort of weakness policy stuff and max it. I mean, it's got decent stats. I mean, it's around 80, about 80, 90.
It can belly drum. There's some interesting stuff he can take advantage of.
Belly drum Unburden with Follow Me Redirection. Oof, especially with Indeedee. Like, he doesn't even have to run it Psychic Seed to pair with Indeedee. So I think it's going to be interesting. Like, I'd be a little bit scared as to what he's got planned with that.
Oh, for sure.
It also completes his fantasy core a lot better. Obviously, he's just picked up Dragonite and Klinklang. He's yet to use Dragonite. And his fairy type at this point was Morlul. And I know we go on, the Morlul that could, it's still a Morlul. It's not the fairy.
We respect the Morlul here, but it's still just a
Morlul.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting piece as well. Like, as you say, it can be a fast supportive, it can be fast offensive, it can be fast chip. So we'll see what it does. I think it also gets like Sweet Veil as well as an ability, so that's kind of cool. So we might as well start with that matchup then. So the Crimmage Colossals versus the Bavarian Landorus. As we just said, like, I think the Coughing might actually be quite vital here. Like, I think the Landorus is going to be going for a neutralizing gas to prevent the Colossal's abilities, and obviously he's got the Psychic Terrain. He's got the Steam Engine. He's got the he's removed that one, actually. He's got Clear Body on Klinklang. If he does
bring the Wheezing, he has to bring his own mons that maybe don't require that much ability work. They're just going to go for the brute force power from it.
Yeah, and an example of that is... An example of that is like Charizard, where, it can run with solar power, but it doesn't need solar power.
Yeah.
However, against a team with Colossal, Charizard would be a brave bring there. He's even got Latias. Is he got a Latios? Yeah, he's got Latios,
which is
he has
which has got Levitate. So it's again another one that uses an ability. But yeah, my heart in this matchup says I want to support the Krumma Colossals. But I think the Bavarian Landorus could do really well here. If I go to actually look at the matchup of this, and we can have a proper look. Oh, someone's already got it here for me. Thank you very much. Like, if you get if you look down at the actual matches, like Urshifu does really well against Colossal for damage outputs. You've got Charizard, which takes damage from Colossal, which you've got to be careful of. Mudsdale, again, another one that relies on their ability a bit. I think that outside of Grookey, Gastrodon does really well. And
Gastrodon looks really good.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he's going for a more Gastrodon centric team up against this against the Colossals. Because so I think it could be really interesting. Because of obviously Urshifu does work against Indeedee, Weavile. You got Gastrodon for Mudsdale. Frostlass can obviously do damage with Freeze Dry, so that's something the Gastrodon has to worry about. And even like a Choice Banded Grookey can do damage against Gastrodon. I think I'm going to say the Bavarian Landorus is who I think will win. Opinions?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'd agree with the Bavarian Landorus on this one. I would still. I'm on the same boat as you, Matrix. I'd like to see the Krumma Colossals get a win with their more Mimi play style. I just think there's just too much on the Bavarian Landorus' side to really warrant a favorable matchup for the Colossals.
Yeah, and I just cutting across before Bioptic says anything, as I keep doing. I think the Bavarian Landorus' team, although I say yes, I think they've got a good matchup, I don't think it's an easy matchup. I think he's still got to put in the work to get this win. Yeah. I just think that the Bavarian Landorus have the capacity to take this match more so than I think the Colossals do. So
yeah, it's a tough matchup for sure. Now that the Colossals have more or less shored up their team a little more.
It's a little bit more
was a very heavy criticism we had earlier, is that it was very top heavy without much of a secondary option behind their pair mode that they were running. But I think now they can definitely put up a really good fight. I think they can put up a really good fight. But I do think the Bavarian Landorus take this one.
Yeah, I could see a Dragonite and Slurpuff putting in work for the Colossals this week as well. What have you got to say on this, Bioptic?
I think it's going to be a Bavarian Landorus win. I think there is something that they can do with the coffin, obviously with the neutralizing gas, for example, to nullify the steam engine Colossal. Charizard gets Scorching Sands.
Yes, it does.
It does get ground coverage, and they can just completely nullify it that way. It's like you guys said. I think the Bavarian Landorus they will have to work for it. And I do think that the Krumma Colossals will probably take a game. I think it will be a 2-1-er again. But I honestly do think the Bavarian Landorus have got a bit more firepower.
I think they've got more versatility.
I think there's a lot more versatility in their firepower.
I can see them running a few different modes against the Colossals. Wherefore, I think I know what the Colossals would bring against the Landorus. And I think that's where the Landorus has a little bit more of an advantage. Like, I know the Colossals have shored up their modes a little bit more to make it less predictable. And I think the only way that it becomes a little bit more unpredictable is that it's got Dr. Dave H as the coach. And honestly, you could predict what mons are coming, but you cannot predict what they'll be doing.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe you'll see 100%. A Max Shellos versus Gastrodon. I think this will be.
You never know. You never know. It's gonna be a really good match. I'm looking forward.
Hopefully, both teams record this time. I know Landorus didn't manage to record the last one, so they had to use South Chronosaur's video. And I know the Colossals were trying to record, but failed to hit record. So hopefully we get a match from this one. Be really good to see. So we move on to the London Lucarios versus the Drowsy Drakazolts, which is our dear friend Masenko. I'm just gonna not to dismiss, but the Drowsy Drakazolts, in my opinion, take this. I don't see a way that they don't. I mean, the Drakazolts have their ways of disrupting Trick Room modes, as we've seen against my match.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to run Trick Room, they managed to prevent that. They've got Kangaskhan, for God's sakes. Fake out or circle throw onto that Dusclops, it's not getting Trick Room up. And I don't think there's anything the Lucarios can do to make sure that they do. Because you can't fake Kangaskhan out. So I think the Lucarios needs to be, this week, a little bit more creative and figure out a way to deal with this Kangaskhan or that allows them to play a more open game. Because so far, they've just kept getting shut down and shut down and shut down.
I think if he's worried about the Kangaskhan, maybe an offensive Scrafty set would instead of a more supportive with the Dusclops, maybe a more offensive set with Scrafty could work. Maybe a Dragon Dance set or
I could see that. I could see that actually. Like Dragon Dance Scrafty with Rage Powder Tangrowth.
Yeah.
That's not a bad shout. Like, especially if you're running okay. Like Scrafty's got decently high special attack, special defense as well. The other option you can do is like obviously the more standard Scrafty, which has Assault Vest and stuff. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. I still say that the Drowsy Drakazolts will win this, just because they've got insane utility.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And so
I'd like to see the Lucarios do something here.
Yeah.
And hopefully the Lucarios realize that Kangaskhan can hit ghost types.
Yeah. I hopefully.
But I think could work here. Like I said earlier, putting Sap Sipper on Azumarill instead of
yes,
huge power for that Venusaur right there. That'd be fantastic. I think that'd be a fantastic time to run it.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously the Venusaur can run poison against the Azumarill, but like you can be a little bit more happy that you've got a mon that is immune to the sleep powder and stuff. I know the Drakazolts haven't been running sleep powder a lot. They've been favoring their coverage or protect or supportive moves like Helping Hand over sleep powder because everyone preps for the sleep powder.
Yeah.
So they take advantage of that and don't run it. So they've wasted
the offensive set.
Yeah, which is a similar mindset. To waste the opponent's prep. However, if they can get around the fire type, which is Ninetales, and the Sun mode of Zapdos and Ninetales and Venusaur, Escavalier gets Overcoat, and that alone could be enough to ignore like Sleep Powder. So again, it's like they might not need to run safety goggles or anything because they can just rely on the fact that they've got mons that naturally immune to it.
Sandaconda, I'm seeing lurks really good here as well.
The only issue with that is Inteleon and Venusaur.
Yeah.
It
looks good, and I see some good matchups and also some unfavorable matchups, but I think it's a decent bring.
I actually think one of the best mons they could bring is possibly Palossand.
Yeah.
Palossand does look good here, actually.
But I don't know. I think the London Lucarios have an uphill battle this week. I don't think it's favorable. I think the Drowsy Drakazolts will take the win. I think the London Lucarios, again, I'll say the same thing every time. I think they need to shore up their team with some different pieces now. I think they've taken so many losses.
We're saying Excelgor is still on the board. He can easily get that Excelgor.
It is, and I'm pretty sure
that'll fantastically with Palossand.
They could replace Shiinotic with Lilligant. And I think
Lilligant would also be really good. That would really work well with the Torkoal with the chlorophyll in after you.
Yes, exactly. So, like, I think there could be some really good trades that they could implement for the last few weeks, just so that they can start having a little bit more fun with the team. So,
right,
we'll see. But yeah, I'm giving this win to the Draxels, I believe.
I think that's a fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Okay, so we have the Lily Cove Lichen Rocks versus the Somerville Scraggies. Now, hopefully, this game gets played this week.
I think this is similar to the London Lucarios and the Drowsy Drake results. I think this is a similar thing. Just one team, just absolutely, looks way better than the other in terms of prep and just record in general. You can't just look at straight at the record, but the way that the Lichen Rocks have not even been playing, I don't see how they can take someone like Tyler in this matchup.
I think the biggest issue is that the Lichen Rocks have a bit of a glaring weakness with some of their sweepers.
Yeah.
As the fact that they got Salmons and Tapu Bulu and Landorus, and they're all weak to ice.
Yeah.
So like a bit of ice coverage really cripples his team. Then he's having to rely on like Corviknight, and Corviknight's a good mon, but it can't be a solo sweeper, you know?
You're right.
I actually think, interestingly enough, I think Type Null could be really interesting here as like a bit of a staller. Like he's going against Umbreon, and Umbreon is known for like stalling. But obviously you've got Togekiss, Comfey, you've got the Mons, Cobalion, Scraggy to really like upset the Umbreon, deal some damage. But yeah, I don't know. I think if he's gonna bring, if the Scraggy's gonna bring Type Null anytime, I think it could be this week, just because if it gets
Serena could be a good thing to counter the Umbreon too with the baby doll eyes.
Yeah,
because Umbreon's very known for running baby doll eyes. I think baby doll eyes was on the set that was it on the set that was in the PC3 final? I don't know if it was or not, but I just know it's a very common move set for Umbreon, and that's a priority move.
The thing is that I doubt that would be a move that the Umbreon would want to bring, especially like against like a Regirock, when you know Serena's on the field, when there's redirection.
Yeah.
I don't think that will be their main bring. I think the biggest threat that the Lichen Rocks have to worry about is a special Goodra and Inteleon with the ice coverage. Do they have a way to stop the beat up? I don't think they do.
Gooey could work here. Gooey Goodra? Would Gooey Goodra work here?
A little bit.
He's got some decent speed tiers. He's got Salamence, Lando T, Dust Rock. He's got some good speed tiers here. So he really likes Espeon. So I think it'd help. Espeon wouldn't. It's a physical move, so never mind. Don't worry about the Espeon. But other physical attackers like Salamence, Landorus T, it could help out in the long run.
I'm interested to see what Tyler brings this week. Tyler's bought a lot of innovative sets throughout the entire series. I'm very excited to see what he comes up with for this week.
He's brought every mon but his mascot Scraggy. I reckon Scraggy will see a bit of gameplay this week.
I hope the game gets played.
Yeah, so do I. I think Scraggy's win this though. So.
Yeah. It's the same as the Lichen Rocks and the Lucarios. They've got very rough matches this week.
Yeah. This is a favorite matchup of mine.
Oh,
we've got
a rematch from last season.
We have got the Southeast Luxrays versus the Charlotte Beedrills. And wasn't last season a victory for the Beedrills?
Yeah, I won that one with my rain mode. And even I know we're talking about last season for whatever reason, but even my game 2 with Gmax, Urshifu, and Fletchling, you countered that pretty well. So it was just so even though it was both of our debuts in Draft League and BGC in general, I think it was a pretty good matchup both ways. Anyway.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Did you two play for the first week?
Yeah,
we were first week.
Oh, it's first week, so this is a long time coming. This rematch.
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty cool.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to it. We're having two OG Johto players in a rematch, and both players who didn't make playoffs last season. So it's really interesting. Get to test
you need to
your
stop
mettle.
talking about playoffs with me, Matrix. I told you.
Hey,
my aim for this season was to just improve on last season. I've done that. I'm happy.
You're 3-3 in 6 spots in going into week 7. I think it's possible.
Oh, anything's possible. Anything's possible. But I'm not thinking. Because I know that the second that I start thinking about it, I will then start putting pressure on myself, and then I will end up just crumbling to the pressure. I don't do very well at pressure. Okay. So I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just going to have fun.
That might have been my downfall, because earlier, before matchups, I was heavily looking to make playoffs this year. So maybe I need to get that mentality for the rest of the week, and I'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm just all about having fun, improving on my team building, having a better team, because obviously last season the team wasn't great.
And you've already done that, Bioptic. You've already done that.
Oh, 100%. You know, I've got 2 more wins than I had last season.
Yeah.
So I'm happy.
And I think the Beagles are matching their wins at the moment, aren't they? Did you have 3 last season?
I was somewhere around there. But I think this team is a lot different than my team last year. I think this my team requires a lot more thought to go into it than last season's team did. So
you've moved from a rain core team to a sand core team with Trick Room, and I think the last season you ended up having to just rely on Braviary doing a load of stuff, where for this time you've got more tools. So I think it's a bit different.
Yeah.
So initial impressions.
It went from a rain team to a Braviary team.
It did. So initial impressions are we basically got two completely different modes. We've got a sand room team versus a terrain control team. And both are played very different in a way. Neither team has the means to counter the opposing terrain / weather. Meowstick, on one hand, does have options for weather control, so I think these Luxrays have a little bit of advantage in that scenario.
Yeah.
However, the Beedrills have Trick Room potential, which means that the Luxrays have to prep for both fast and slow modes, and to try and stop this.
And I might not even I've been known to not even click Trick Room most of the time when I even bring it, so that's also something to think about.
Exactly.
The mind games.
Obviously,
Bronzong has kills for a reason, my friend.
And obviously, Alchemy is one of these mons that is immune to taunt. So and it makes his partners immune to taunt as well. So looking at the teams together, I can see it's actually really difficult because I don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 2-1 either way.
I haven't really spoken to either of you about this matchup yet, so I know I'm in the safe zone. I think I might know 1 or 2 ideas from each of you, but that's about it. It's definitely going to be challenging. I think you're both going to have to try and prep to counter each other rather than imposing one mode over the other. So some matchups you can be like, oh, I'm going to be very dominant, like how when we saw the 2 beat up users go head to head, no, I'm going to beat up, no, I'm going to beat up. I think this one is where you both have just come off matches where you've had to play very controlled games. I think this is going to be a similar situation here, and I think it's going to be whoever has the better control of the game and the better execution of their prep. Not so much better prep, but the better in-game execution.
Yeah.
We both have built very different teams from last season and much better teams from last season. So this is gonna. I'm really looking forward to our matchup, Bioptic.
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited.
Yeah. I circled this when I saw this. Is like this was going to be a good matchup, and I think we both made really good trades that benefit our teams really well. I think the Lycanroc was a good pickup, and then you just got a lot of you got my Sentinel Scorch, my little baby from last season. So you guys have really good stuff there.
I've got 3 of mine
looking
from last season.
Looking to having a better look at this and prepping and all that kind of stuff. I'm really looking forward to our matchup.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited.
I'm not. I know the Luxrays are going to back themselves. The Beedrills are obviously going to back themselves. I'm going to be Switzerland and play neutral. So
fair.
I think literally can't decide.
Looking at it, I'm not backing myself. I'm going to say I think it will be a 2-1 or either way. I don't think it will be a 2-0 sweep for either of us.
Yeah. I'd be highly disappointed if it was another 2-0. I need a 2-1 out of this.
Yeah. I'd like to have a 3 games.
I think this could be a really interesting 3 games as well. So, okay, so the Alchemies get a week bye this week because of reasons, and the same with the Merseyside Marowaks. Now, the reason why they're not playing each other is because they've already played each other. And
right.
We make the best effort we can to avoid replays in the season. So they'll have I think the Alchemies will be playing the Bavarian Landorus at the end of the season, and the Merseyside Marowaks I think are playing London Lucarios at the end of the season, just before the playoffs. But as it stands, they get a free week to just chill. We then move on to the Dark Lord Greninjas versus the Cardiff Kamalas. I'm actually really interested in this match. I'm already gonna just say it's a Sun team versus a Rain team. Control team versus Dragapult.
Yeah.
My initial impression is that I want to back the Cardiff Kamalas here. I know the Dark Lord Ninjas have got a strong team, but I know you've got Rain with Suicune and Pelipper, but you've got Cinderace, you've got Weather Ball Venusaur, you've got Lipod, which is the better control for weather because a Prankster can move after the Mon has been switched in. So you'll always get your weather up. You've got Togepi for redirection if you really need to. Magneton does surprising amount of damage. So Magneton base 125 special attack, man. That's going to be doing a lot to the mons like Suicune, Pelipper, Celesteela. So
that 70 is also a decent speed tier.
Yeah.
It's a decent speed tier.
And then you've got Dragapult as well. So it's I don't know necessarily who would win. I think Incineroar comes every day of the week. Like that's definitely coming. And because Incineroar's coming, I wouldn't be surprised if Kabutops doesn't come. Because this is the thing, Kabutops is a Swift Swim user.
Yeah.
So he'll always outspeed the opponent's rain mode. Like Kabutops will always outspeed Ludicolo. And that can be quite important. What's actually interesting is Kabutops gets Sandstorm, and I don't know if this would be what they would do. But if they led like Suicune, if they led Pelipper, Ludicolo with Cinderace and Kabutops, like if they really wanted, I don't say this is the best way. You can Swift and Kabutops could use Sandstorm, making Ludicolo revert back down to its normal speed, and Cinderace can just max airstream it. Like, I'm not saying that's the best thing, but I'm just pointing out like examples of this could happen.
Yeah, so Cardiff Kamalas
they have the tools.
Their opponent's weather and turn it against them, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think. Celesteela will have to be watching out for that Cinderace. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I know the Kamalas don't always run a offensive Cinderace. They can run a supportive one. So
yeah.
And then obviously you can't disregard Dragapult. I would imagine that the Celesteela team will be running Assault Vest on the Celesteela. That's what my presumption would be going into this, because you've got this Venusaur, you've got which could have Weather Ball, you've got Magneton, you've got Dragapult, which its coverage is special. And then the only mon they have to worry about then is like Cinderace. And I know only mon you have to worry about is Cinderace, but they do have a lot of water types. They have Incineroar for Intimidate. They've got a lot to deal with a Cinderace, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If they recycle these Intimidates off Incineroar, you can really neutralize the type of damage output Cinderace is doing, especially if like you maybe lead Incineroar Celesteela, hard switch Celesteela out for Suicune. That Suicune's taking them hits from a Cinderace, you know. So I think
it's definitely up there, isn't there?
Yeah, and Ludicolo does match up evenly with Venusaur, because obviously poison versus grass, and Ludicolo does get ice moves for the Venusaur. I'm just trying to think of ways, like, obviously you got to be careful, like Sleep Powder from Venusaur in the sun against like Celesteela and Incineroar and Grimmsnarl. So
it's definitely going to be a good match.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is a very difficult one to sit here and go, I think this is, both teams have got something that counters the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be the same as me and Bryan. I think it's going to be who has the better control during the match instead of who has the better prep.
Right.
I think the Cardiff Kamalas will win this. And I think it might be less about the control than you would initially think. Obviously, every match is about control, but I think it's about. I think in this matchup, it might be a case of like inserting the dominant play, and I think the Cardiff Kamalas are able to do that a bit more effectively. Because obviously you can get clear body Dragapult, which means that a lot of what the disruption that the Dark Lord Greninjas want to do won't work.
Just negated.
I think Articuno could be really good. I know there's some dark types there, but there's some utility that it can offer. I don't know. I just have a gut feeling that I think the Cardiff Kamalas will take this.
It's going to be a good match. I think it will be a really, really good match.
Wish I could say Marowak was coming, but a lot of rain, so probably not.
Yeah. I'd like to see. I just see a lot of zeros on Brots, which means they're a lot more predictable in what they're going to bring. So it's just something that I'm just noticing. There's a lot of predictability as well. So if they play the way they always, I think both players could potentially just predict the mons that are coming a little easier. So that might also help out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Glaceon could be good.
I know you're a big fan of the Glaceon.
I like Glaceon. I don't. I think it has potential to shut down his rain mode, and that's about it. Yeah. But like, we'll see. I'm backing Cardiff Kamalas. And then we go to.
I'll go Dark Lord's Greninjas. I'll go the Dark Lord's Greninjas on this one.
Bioptic.
I'm going to say Dark Lord Greninjas.
Ooh, we have a conflict. And then the last matchup, which again I don't really have much to say about, is the South Croydon Saws versus myself and the Welsh Wailords. Both are 4-2. I think this is probably the most impactful match of the week.
Yes.
Like it's a match between two of the higher up players in the league. I know the South Croydon Saws are really excited for this matchup. I know I'm less so.
I can see.
I think it comes down from first glance. If he brings an anti-trick room core, I think that's very key to him getting a win here. But I think if that is your plan matrix to go into your trick room,
he doesn't bring that core, I think you've got an advantage here. It all comes down to whether he brings his anti-trick room core, which I think he knows that he has on his team. I don't think he's someone who doesn't even know that he has this anti-trick room core. I think he knows he has it. He just hasn't brung it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say as well. I feel like the South Croydon Saws have lost, did you say, was it 2 games now where Trick Room's been involved? I think this week they will not ignore Trick Room as a threat.
Yeah.
That is fine. That's perfectly fine. I mean, I've literally got 2 Mons on my team that require Trick Room. So,
yeah.
I know that, he'll be looking at Trick Room as a potential threat, but the more he looks at Trick Room as a threat, the more freedom I have the more freedom I have for all my other modes. So,
yeah, exactly.
I know that. I know that I have
a lot of modes here that he has to plan for. And if you more predict his play and go less into Trick Room, then that might be advantageous for you. But he's also incredibly fast. He's one of the fastest teams in the division. You can't match speed with him. So it's just one of those things where you've got the thing that can beat his thing, but he's got the thing that can beat your thing. So it's just like this big chess match of what our brings are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do to counter? I think you're going to have to spend a lot of time in team preview to figure out what you need to do.
And who knows, I might just rock up with Fungus and max it. I've been waiting to max Fungus all this time. Who knows? This might be the time to do it. I'm looking at you, Septile. Fungus will do work against you.
It's a very good matchup. I think it's going to be an absolutely incredible game to watch.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that even though it's a week 7 match, and I know we're both on par, we aren't overly pressured as we are both quite got good game differential. That if either one of us loses, I don't think it's going to be it's not going to hit us out of the competition just yet. So because we're both sat in 4th and 5th.
The 1 through 4 are very solid in their placements at the moment. It's people like me and Bioptic that are really facing issues when we take losses at this point in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But obviously neither of us are wanting to get many more losses at this stage of the competition.
Right.
So we've already
taken more losses than you did last season.
I know. Well, technically, who knows? If I go lossless all the way to the final, I've taken the same amount of losses. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, it was painful. I mean, last season I managed to go from week 4 up till week 10 lossless. So who knows? Maybe I'd do it again this one.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to be an easy task, though. I know
it's going to be
South Chronosaurs are a difficult opponent for me.
Yeah. It's going to be good to see. It's going to be really interesting to see what you both decide to bring.
Definitely. I'll start getting prepped on it on Saturday. It's fine. Playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's obviously I'm going to back myself here. So I'm sure if Masenko and Carmine were here, then they would have a lot more to say about this matchup. And a lot more insightfulness about all the matchups, really. But
100%.
I'm still inexperienced. So, and all these are just my opinions, but my opinions can be wrong. They often are.
Hey, I was very confident going in my last 2 weeks, and what happened? So
I was an absolute wreck before my last match, which was against the Southeast Lux Rays. So, and I managed to win based off the opponent's mistakes.
Exactly.
So
exactly, I did you a favor.
Exactly, I appreciate it. I needed that win. So that basically wraps up the week 6 week recap, I suppose.
All right.
This actually took a lot longer. This is always the case. We always end up taking a lot longer than I anticipate. I think we've basically matched our usual runtime. So
yeah,
we like to give all the participating teams their fair shot.
Yeah, I just feel like
even though that makes our podcast longer, I think it makes it better.
Yeah, I do feel like the quality isn't as good this time because there's a lot more time of me rambling, just saying the same thing. So, who knows? Who knows? Hopefully, some of you guys who are listening this far into it and not just skipping over the to the parts that are relevant to you. If anyone actually listens to this bit, I hope that we've been somewhat helpful or somewhat insightful and entertaining into what the goings on as of week 6 in the Johto division.
Anyone watches the entire thing, it's definitely me during my deliveries because I get bored.
Yeah, I watched the entire thing.
Oh dear. I watch other people's ones. I won't watch mine. Once I've uploaded, that's it. Never touch it again. Never watch it again.
That's fair.
I hate listening to myself. But no,
I've grown numb. I've grown numb to my speaking voice.
Well,
I've grown numb to hearing it.
That's the conclusion. I think thank you all for listening this week, and hopefully see you again next week. Thank you both for joining me tonight.
No problem.
No problem. I'm glad I dropped by. This was really fun. Bioptic, you were really good today. You were really good.
Much appreciated.
I do try. Obviously,
a very welcome addition, and I would like to keep you around. Honestly, you were great.
Yeah, you're welcome back to join us another time.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm still quite new to the competitive scene. I'm learning off of you guys. I'm learning by doing, and obviously, it's quite nice to be on here, listen to what you guys say, and try and give some sort of input in. Obviously, I don't understand every mechanic.
Right.
I don't understand every player, everything like that. But it's been good. I've really enjoyed it. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'll definitely definitely come back again when I win the entire UGA.
Yeah.
Johto Division, best division.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
See you later.